Chapter 788. Hearing this, he was surprised. Direct disciple? Didn't they all die out? Zhang Xiaohu's face showed a bitter smile, but he was still respectful. Then he heard a sound of footsteps, neither fast nor slow, coming from inside. When he reached the door, Zhang Xiaohu looked over. It was Li Jian, dressed in a green robe, with white hair on his temples. Li Jian's face was wrinkled like it was carved by a knife. Other than his temples, his head was also white. Only his waist was still straight, and the spirit in his eyes was even sharper than before. Zhang Xiaohu did not dare to neglect. He immediately went forward and bowed. Disciple Zhang Xiaohu greets masterly. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu, Li Jian also frowned. He thought for a moment and hesitated. You are the old disciple that Ahai took in? Zhang Xiaohu nodded. Yes, I am. Ai, it's been hard on you. You entered my Misty School for only a few years, but you met with such a big change. You didn't even enjoy the preferential treatment of a direct disciple. Zhang Xiaohu was embarrassed. Disciple doesn't dare. Under master's guidance, disciple has already practiced the ethereal divine art for several years. It can be considered a small harvest. Ethereal divine art? Li Jian stared at him for a long time and mocked. A small harvest? You dare to say this? Although this old man has lost all his internal energy, I still have eyes. You have only practiced internal energy for several years, and you dare to say that you have a small harvest. I'm not afraid of hurting you, but you haven't even found the threshold. Shameless boasting. Then he continued. This is simply a stain on the profound ethereal divine art. This Zhang Xiaohu was sweating profusely. He heard that Master Li had always been cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Why did he give him such a show of strength when they met? Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to refute. What Li Jian said was also right. He was currently practicing two types of internal energy at the same time, and his maturity was only at the level of a few years. He could only bitterly smile and say, Martial Ancestor Li's teachings are correct. This disciple will definitely practice martial arts diligently in the future, and will absolutely not tarnish the reputation of this ethereal divine art. Li Jian ignored him and said to the disciple surnamed Zhou, You go and call your martial uncle Li and senior brother Shi. We have been in Shixin Peak for 4 or 5 years. This is the first time that a direct disciple has come to persuade us. It's better to meet them. Maybe Ahai has something to say. Then he glanced sideways at Zhang Xiaohu. Come in. Zhang Xiaohu followed Li Jian into the hall, and looked around curiously. This was a wooden building with ventilation on all sides. There were no walls around it. Inside the so-called hall there were several chairs. Zhang Xiaohu counted them, and found that there were 6 of them. When he looked up, there were 3 memorial tablets placed at the top of the hall. There were also 3 incense burners. There were several incense sticks that were slowly burning. Zhang Xiaohu's heart trembled. There was nothing to say. Weren't these the names of Openg, Shangguan Fenglu and Su Peihua? He didn't dare to be negligent. When Li Jian sat down on a chair, he hurriedly went forward and knelt on the ground, kowtowing 3 times. Then he stepped forward and respectfully lit 3 incense sticks for each of the memorial tablets. After that, he stepped back and stood opposite Li Jian. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu kowtowing respectfully, Li Jian only looked on coldly. He wasn't moved by these actions and didn't even have any expression. What a joke. This was Zhang Xiaohu's grandmaster, and the spirit tablet was right here. If one didn't go up and offer incense, then it would be surprising. However, if this was enough to make Li Jian reveal a look of relief and nod his head repeatedly, then it would be even more laughable if he was moved by Zhang Xiaohu's actions. And presumably Zhang Xiaohu's previous disciples were also this hypocritical. Zhang Xiaohu stood there and waited for a while. Then he heard Li Jian cough and say, Zhang Xiaohu, since you are a direct disciple of my Misty School, then I won't be polite. Tell me the truth. What conditions did the Temple of Fragrance offer to make us submit? Zhang Xiaohu was at a loss. He raised his head and said, Martial Ancestor Li, this disciple didn't come here for this matter. Li Jian waved his hand and said, if it's not this matter, what else can it be? Didn't you send a few disciples here to talk to me about this matter? Moreover, they didn't use this as a banner? Forget it. They actually sent you here this time. They are really at their wits' end. First, tell me about the changes in the Misty Hall this year. Tell me everything, no matter how big or small. As long as you know, tell me everything. Zhang Xiaohu thought for a while and said with a smile, "Yes, martial ancestorly." After that, he stood there and recounted everything that happened in the past year. When he was about to finish, Martial Uncle Zhou pushed a huge simple chair and brought a man to the meeting hall. Zhang Xiaohu stopped talking and looked at the drunk man on the chair. Wasn't this the majestic stone cow from the Misty Peak? But at this time, Stone Cow was actually a little fat. The threatening aura on his body had long disappeared. His body was slumped on the chair, leaving only a decadent smell of alcohol. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu come forward and salute, Stone Cow only slightly opened his drunk eyes. He squinted for a while and then closed them again, ignoring him. He heard Martial Uncle Zhou say, "Martial Uncle Lu is still drunk and can't come. I have already told the disciples on guard. If Martial Nephew Zhang hasn't left, when Martial Uncle Lu wakes up, tell him." Looking at Stone Cow's appearance, Li Jian coldly said, "Zhang Xiaohu, continue talking. When Stone Cow wakes up, you can talk to him." Thus, Zhang Xiaohu continued to tell him about the recent situation of the Yulan Twilight refinement. This time, Li Jian was beaming with joy as he slapped the table and said, "Delightful, delightful, truly delightful. What kind of monster is this Yulan Grand Canyon? Why did it only kill a few thousand ordinary disciples? Why didn't it come out and kill all the disciples of the fragrant religion?" Zhang Xiaohu was sweating profusely. When he heard that Zhang Xiaohu saved Zhang Xiaohua, Li Jian unconsciously let out a cold snort from his nose. Soft-hearted, he's just a kid from the pill-expanding hall. What's there to save? You have to remember, the fragrant religion destroyed our Misty School. They killed a lot of Misty School's disciples that year. Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. Even Zhang Xiaohua, who was hiding at the side, was displeased. Although he saw the stone cow being pushed in, his heart was filled with sorrow. He lamented that the brave and fierce man had fallen to such a state. But now he was being scolded by Li Jian. He couldn't help but feel disdain for Li Jian's narrow-mindedness. When Li Jian heard about Zhao Jian's deranged actions, he couldn't help but feel a little dejected. He said, "This brat came last year and looked refined. He even burned 9 sticks of incense. How come I didn't see him being so sinister? He even wants to harm our own disciples?" AI the ancients said, "An orange in Huainan is an orange, while an orange in Huaibei is an orange." If Zhao Jian was in our Misty School, he would never do such a heinous thing. Damn, Zhang Xiaohu secretly cursed. He only offered 9 incense sticks and you think so highly of him. It seems that I didn't offer enough. But, martial ancestor Li, this disciple really doesn't know the rules. After Zhang Xiaohu finished speaking, Li Jian looked at the sky and said, "And you've said what you should say. I've also said what I should say. You must remember that you are a direct disciple of the Misty School. Although your martial arts are low, your status is still there. Don't be confused by the small favors of Yang Rupiang and Lingering Fragrance Peak. They can only give you some external things. But the honor of being a direct disciple of the Misty School is not something they can give you. Go back and tell Yang Rupiang that I will not agree to what she said. Although our Misty School disciples don't have martial arts, we have strength. If we don't have food, we will plant it ourselves. If we don't have houses, we will build them ourselves. If we don't have clothes, we will wear animal skins. Anyway, we have nothing to do with the Misty Hall. Thank her for her concern. Let her be the inner disciple of Lingering Fragrance Peak, and be the Misty Hall's hall master." After listening to Li Jian's words, Zhang Xiaohu somewhat understood that this proud and aloof martial ancestor, Li must have regarded him as the Misty Hall's lobbyist from the moment they met. Whatever he said would only make him feel conflicted. And, fortunately before I left, Xiaohua had already discussed with me. Let's not talk about the chief disciple first. If I say it now, wouldn't she misunderstand my intentions? How would she agree to let me be in that position? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohu bowed deeply and smiled. Martial ancestor Li's words, this disciple has already brought it to Hall Master Yang. However, this disciple has not come for the matter that martial ancestor has said. Li Jian was also surprised and sneered. What matter can there be that Yang Ruping would trouble you, a direct disciple, to come here? Zhang Xiaohu looked around and was somewhat cautious, saying, Martial Ancestor Li, this matter is quite important. Please allow this disciple to report it alone. Li Jian gave him a sidelong glance, saying, I only have disciples from the Misty School here. There are no disciples from the Misty Hall. You can rest assured that nothing will be leaked out. Zhang Xiaohu still shook his head. Please forgive me, Martial Ancestor Li. This matter is too important. This disciple also hid it from Hall Master Yang. The others? Oh, only the original Medicine Hall's martial uncle he knows about this matter. I haven't even told my master. Please reconsider, Martial Ancestor Li. Even Ahai doesn't know? That Li Jian was surprised, saying, Then I can't let Bai Mufeng go. Who knows what you want to tell me? A disciple from the Medicine Hall can know, but when Wenhai, a direct disciple, can't know? Seeing that Li Jian was so stubborn and didn't trust him, Zhang Xiaohu was also helpless. He could only sigh, saying, Since Martial Ancestor Li doesn't want to know about this opportunity to revitalize the Misty School, then this disciple won't say it. Revitalize the Misty School? Li Jian's face was full of disbelief. Zhou Mufeng is my Misty School's disciple. If I can't even trust him, how can I talk about revitalizing the Misty School? Then you'd better not say it. Go back to your Misty Hall as soon as possible. Chapter 789. Seeing Li Jian being so stubborn, Zhang Xiaohu was rather depressed. After pondering for a long time, he smiled bitterly and said, Although Martial Ancestor Li is open and aboveboard and doesn't bully others, you're making things difficult for this disciple. I forget it. Who asked me to be a direct disciple of the Misty School? If I don't go to hell, who will? Li Jian coldly looked at Zhang Xiaohu and did not say anything. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with what he had just said. Zhang Xiaohu used the ethereal divine art and checked the surroundings of the cottage. After confirming that there was no one in the cottage, he lowered his voice and explained that he was able to cure the broken dantian of the Misty School's disciple and the broken joints. Li Jian's expression was very interesting. First it was a look of disdain. Then it was shock. Then, it was a kind of realization. Finally, it was an expression of contempt. After waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to finish, he respectfully stood up. Li Jian said, Are you done? Hearing Li Jian's cold tone, Zhang Xiaohu curiously said, Reporting to Martial Ancestor Li, I have finished. Good, then you can leave. What? Zhang Xiaohu almost couldn't believe his ears. He was full of hope and didn't talk about his personal matters. Instead, he revealed this shocking secret. Who would have thought that it would actually be exchanged for such simple words from Li Jian? Martial Ancestor Li, don't you believe in me? Zhang Xiaohu stuttered. Humph, Li Jian coldly snorted and said, Not only do I not believe, if not for the fact that you are Ahai's disciple, this old man would not chase you away. Otherwise, this old man would have already told you to scram. Zhang Xiaohu sighed. It seemed that this Li Jian's vigilance was not ordinary. However, this was still related to the fate of the Misty School. Zhang Xiaohu did not dare to be negligent. Even if he was wronged, he could only endure. He cupped his hands and said, Martial Ancestor Li, empty words naturally have no basis. Can this disciple give it a try? Don't. How can you make this old man believe such an illusory thing? Forget it. I don't care what your intentions are. You should return to the Misty Hall as soon as possible. Right at this moment, the stone cow beside him called out, Martial Uncle Li, don't be anxious. Zhou Mufeng was also agitated. If it weren't for the difference in status, he would have stepped forward a long time ago. Li Jian frowned. He turned to Stone Cow and said gently, Stone Cow, I know you want to try, but do you think it's possible? In the pugilistic world, there were only rumors of martial arts being crippled when one's dantian was broken. However, there had never been anyone who could recover their martial arts after their dantian was broken. This Zhang Xiaohu has received a lot of benefits from the incense cult. He actually used the identity of a direct disciple to come here and mislead the public. We can only accept it calmly. Don't fall for the incense cult's trick. Stone Cow also smiled bitterly. Martial Uncle Li, you are the backbone of our Misty Hall. This disciple will definitely listen to you. However, look at this disciple. He is just a cripple who is paralyzed in a chair. Since Zhang Xiaohu said that there is a way, even if this Zhang Xiaohu is not right, even if this disciple's life is taken, what harm is there in letting him try? Li Jian frowned slightly. Stone Cow's words were correct. He had been paralyzed in a chair for many years. Unlike himself, he was living a life worse than death. Now that he heard that there was someone who could cure him, it was like a drowning person seeing a floating log. How could he not fight for it with all his heart? Even if it was grass and not wood, Stone Cow would not give it up. Moreover, he did not seem to have the right to choose for Stone Cow. After hesitating for a moment, Li Jian nodded slightly and said, "Since you are willing to try then let's try. However, Stone Cow, you must think carefully. If there is really a way." Stone Cow smiled and said, "Martial Uncle Li, don't worry. Although Stone Cow is slow-witted, I have been in Shixin Peak for so many years. It is also a kind of training. How can I not know the key point? Moreover, Zhang Xiaohu entered the Misty School. I also heard from Ahai about his past. In the early years, when he did not know martial arts, he was able to stand up for justice. How bad can he be now? What is his brother's name?" "Zhang Xiaohua," Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. "Yes, it is Zhang Xiaohua. I remember that when he went south with Miss O, he was also able to sacrifice himself to save others. With such a brother, how bad can Zhang Xiaohu's character be?" Zhang Xiaohu blushed and said, "Martial Uncle Stone Cow, I do not deserve such praise." "Who is praising you? I am just speaking the truth." Stone Cow shook his head. Zhou Mufeng couldn't hold it in any longer. He took a step forward and said, "Martial Uncle Li, disciple has the same thoughts as Shernyo. Since he said that he has a way, disciple feels that it's better to let him try. Let disciple give it a try first. If he succeeds, it'll be a great fortune. If he fails, disciple can be considered as a substitute for the other disciples of ethereal sect." "You guys." Li Jian was a little anxious. In fact, he also wanted to recover his martial arts. But this was indeed too inconceivable. How could a tiny third-generation direct disciple possibly possess such heaven-defying methods? "Martial Uncle Li," both Stone Cow and Zhou Mufeng called out. Li Jian thought for a moment, then turned his face to Zhang Xiaohu and said, "Zhang Xiaohu, I know that you have martial arts, so I cannot do anything to you. However, if you have any evil thoughts and harm Stone Cow and Zhou Mufeng, I will not forgive you." Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Martial Uncle Li, you are both my martial uncles. If I have any evil thoughts, even if you don't pursue it, do you think I can face my master and the other disciples of the Misty School? I hope you are not lying." Li Jian finally agreed. Zhang Xiaohu looked around and said, "Martial Uncle Li, this is not a small matter. We cannot make a big commotion. If we attract the attention of the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak, my life is a small matter, but reviving the Misty School is a big matter. You don't want such a situation to happen, right?" "Nonsense." Li Jian believed in Li Jian even more. "Then, I hope Martial Uncle Li will keep this matter a secret. And I hope Martial Uncle Li can find a quiet room for me." Li Jian thought for a moment, then pointed out the window and said, "There are a few huts at the plaza. There is no one there. You can go there. It is close to my place and we can take care of each other." Seeing Zhang Xiaohu nod, Zhou Mufeng pushed Stone Cow and led Zhang Xiaohu to the thatched hut. After entering the thatched hut, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Many thanks to the two martial uncles for believing in me. I will not disappoint you. Before I start the treatment, I will seal your acupoints." Martial uncles Stone Cow and Zhou Mufeng smiled and said, "No problem. Since you have agreed, we will leave it to you." Zhang Xiaohua followed the instructions and sealed their acupoints. She then looked around and whispered, "Xiaohua? Xiaohua?" Hearing Zhang Xiaohu's call, Zhang Xiaohua popped her head out from the corner of the thatched hut and smiled. Second brother's acting is indeed good. This little brother is full of admiration. As she spoke, her gaze landed on Stone Cow's body. She stretched out her finger and poked a few times. When Li Jian saw Zhang Xiaohua's head popping out from the ground, He immediately jumped in surprise. When Zhang Xiaohua jumped out from the ground and sealed Stone Cow's acupoints, Zhang Xiaohu subconsciously went forward and touched her head and arms. He asked curiously, Xiaohua you, how did you come out from the ground? Don't tell me you are Tu Xing's son? Before Zhang Xiaohua could explain, Zhang Xiaohu continued, This martial art, when can you teach me? Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. She pushed Zhang Xiaohu's hand to the side and said, I want to teach you this martial art, but you have to be able to learn it first, right? Wait for a while. Wait for you to master both the Suhuan Sutra and ethereal divine art. I will think of a way then. Hehe, you are indeed a good brother. I will remember what you said. You must teach me in the future. Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and said, Second brother, can you be more mature? It's just a few techniques. If you have the opportunity, you might not even be interested in these divine arts. All right, let me take a look at Stone Cow's injuries. You actually said that you can cure it in the time it takes to eat 2 meals. You really dare to say that? Didn't you treat Martial Uncle He in the time it takes to eat a meal? I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to find you, so I gave myself some extra time. Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything. She walked forward and looked at this Stone Cow who had fought against the black-clothed men with her in the past. She thought of the Stone Cow's bravery in the past, and then looked at the Stone Cow's current helplessness. Her heart couldn't help but ache. When she poured her zhenqi into the Stone Cow, she looked at the Stone Cow's crushed joints. Her eyebrows unconsciously tightened. When Zhang Xiaohu saw this, he asked with concern, How is it? Martial Uncle Sure. Is his injury very serious? Is it hard to cure? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and then nodded. This made Zhang Xiaohu's head full of confusion. He shouted, Can it be cured or not? I made a promise in front of Martial Ancestrally. If I knew that you couldn't, I would have found someone else. Didn't I know that you were thinking about Stone Cow, so I helped you find him? Zhang Xiaohua bitterly smiled and said, Second brother, don't be anxious. It's not that it can't be cured. It's just that I don't know what kind of external martial arts this Stone Cow practices. His bones have also been tempered. Although the tempering isn't enough, it's still several times harder than a normal person's. And even if the joints were crushed and then crushed again, it wouldn't be an easy thing to do. Don't even talk about curing his joints one by one. One bone congealing pill probably won't be enough. Zhang Xiaohu let out a sigh of relief and said, I was wondering what it would be. If one isn't enough, then 2. Either way, you're refining it yourself. You don't need to ask anyone for help. What are you afraid of? Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes. She looked at Zhang Xiaohu with displeasure and said, Second brother, do you think this bone congealing pill is easy to refine? The spirit herbs needed to refine it. Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and said with a smile, Xiaohua, don't cry poor in front of your second brother. You took 30% of the transaction between Shixin Peak and Bai Yefeng. Second brother doesn't want this 30%. I'll leave it all to you. That's all right. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged her shoulders and mocked. It's just ordinary spirit herbs and elixirs. Why would I care about them? If you give me your 4 carts of spirit herbs, I can consider it. Hee, those spirit herbs, don't even think about it. Our Misty Hall still has them for exchange. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned when he said this. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, Xiaohua, can you refine the Yuhuandin pill? Zhang Xiaohua also understood and said with a smile, not only the Yuhuandin pill, but also the Spirit Awakening pill, Detoxification pill, Blood Replenishing pill and Blood Congealing pill. I can refine them all. Why do you think of me now? Do you want me to refine spirit pills for your Misty Hall? Don't forget, my price is very high. Zhang Xiaohu patted his forehead and said, Why didn't I think of it earlier? You were looking for a pill room and refining some Spirit Awakening pill for Miss O. I didn't look for you, an expert in pill refining, but why did I look for the pill expanding hall? If these spirit herbs fall into their hands, they will take most of them. Now, I'd rather let my brother take advantage of them than let them be happy. Don't you think so? Fine. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand. You mean to drag me into a free job? I won't do it, Zhang Xiaohu said with a calm face. Let's talk about this later. We're brothers. What's so hard to talk about, right? Cough cough, you'd better see how Martial Uncle sure will treat him first. Zhang Xiaohua sighed helplessly in her heart. These spirit pills were refined for nothing. I didn't even take a single pill. I've done second brother a favor. Alas, from today onwards, second brother will reserve all the spirit pills I need to refine in the future. Then Zhang Xiaohua checked Zhou Mufeng's condition again. Her expression became more relaxed and she said, Second brother, Martial Uncle Zhou's injury is not serious. Although his dantian was broken by the monks of the Great Forest Division, his meridians are not damaged. I think one spirit pill is more than enough. Well, then you can give him half a spirit pill. Half a spirit pill? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. The outer layer of the spirit pill was protected by an innate formation. If one wanted to take it, one had to take the whole pill. How could one take half a spirit pill? She waved her hand and said, Forget it. One spirit pill it is. Anyway, he'll be a disciple of the Misty School in the future. If he becomes stronger, he'll be of help to second brother. After she finished speaking, she reached out and sealed all the major acupoints on Shernyo and Zhou Mufeng's bodies. She smiled and said, Second brother, I'll fix Martial Uncle Zhou's dantian first. You can watch from the side. Don't disturb me, and don't let anyone in. Zhang Xiaohu nodded and quietly waited at the side. Zhang Xiaohua also sat down beside Zhou Mufeng. She took out a meridian nourishing pill and put it in Zhou Mufeng's mouth. Then she channeled her true qi into his body. The medicinal power of the meridian nourishing pill flowed along his meridians and into his dantian. Zhou Mufeng's dantian was slightly bigger than He Tianshu's, and the hole was also much bigger. Zhang Xiaohua channeled her true qi into the hole and spread it evenly around the hole. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, under the stimulation of the meridian nourishing pill's medicinal power, Zhou Mufeng's dantian slowly began to heal. Zhang Xiaohua nodded slightly. She didn't send the rest of the medicinal power to his meridians. Instead, she withdrew her true qi and opened her eyes. She said, Okay, second brother, Martial Uncle Zhou is done. Zhang Xiaohu asked curiously, So fast? He's already recovered his internal energy? How can it be so fast? It's just the beginning of healing his dantian. We don't have to worry about the rest. We just have to wait. Didn't Captain He explain it to you this morning? Zhang Xiaohu rolled his eyes at him again. Didn't you say it? Otherwise, why would I ask you? Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything. She sat down beside the stone ox again. First, she channeled her true qi into the stone ox's broken joints one by one. Although the stone ox's acupoints were sealed, his bones had been tempered by the bone-strengthening pill. When Zhang Xiaohua crushed the bones, she used more strength than He Tianshu. The pain was needless to say. The stone ox was also sweating more than He Tianshu. However, the smell of alcohol in the sweat made Zhang Xiaohua extremely unhappy. When the stone ox's joints were crushed, Zhang Xiaohua was also sweating. She opened her eyes and looked at Zhang Xiaohu. She bared her teeth and said, This stone ox is really a cow made of stone. These bones, TSK, they're really impressive. Xiaohua, if you're tired, you should rest first. It's still early. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to finish speaking, Zhang Xiaohua deftly wrapped the stone ox's joints with branches and cloth. She then took out a jade bottle from her chest and poured out the bone-solidifying pill. She put it into the stone ox's mouth and smiled. The first spurt of energy, the second spurt of energy, the third spurt of energy. It's better if I finish early. As Zhang Xiaohua sent her true qi into the stone ox, the effect of the bone-solidifying pill was left in the joints. Zhang Xiaohua's face became even paler. Zhang Xiaohu, who was beside her, felt his heart ache. Although he didn't want to let Zhang Xiaohua off, this was under the premise of ensuring Zhang Xiaohua's safety. If his brother got hurt because of this, Zhang Xiaohu would be the first to disagree. Just as he was thinking, he heard Zhang Xiaohua say to herself, As expected, it's not enough. Finished speaking, she fed the stone ox another bone-solidifying pill. She closed her eyes again and sent the new medicinal effect to the remaining joints. 2 meals passed in the blink of an eye, but Zhang Xiaohua still didn't open her eyes. It could be seen that the stone ox's injuries were serious. Seeing the bean-sized beads of sweat dripping from Zhang Xiaohua's forehead, Zhang Xiaohu was a little anxious. At this moment, a roar suddenly came from outside the thatched hut. Where's the stone ox? Where did the stone ox go? Didn't someone say they were looking for me? Where did that person go? Zhang Xiaohu was surprised. Isn't that Lu Qingyang, one of the 6 misty tigers who has always been known for his recklessness? Why did he come at this time? Don't you think it's a coincidence that he came a little late? Presumably, Xiaohua has already finished, and there's no risk of qi deviation. Looking at Xiaohua's appearance, there's still some time before she's finished. But if Zhang Xiaohu went out now and stopped Lu Qingyang, wouldn't that mean that he wasn't the one who cured the stone ox? But if he didn't stop him, wouldn't he be watching Lu Qingyang barge in and disturb Zhang Xiaohua? At this time, Zhang Xiaohua seemed to have heard the shouting outside, and her brows were slightly wrinkled. Zhang Xiaohu was even more anxious. He quickly walked to the door of the thatched hut and took a stance. Although the person who came was the grandmaster of the Misty School, the person inside the hut was his own brother. Zhang Xiaohu would rather offend Lu Qingyang than let his brother go crazy because of him. Of course, Zhang Xiaohu cared too much about his brother. Zhang Xiaohua was definitely not as serious as he imagined at this time. He just felt that this Lu Qingyang was so loud that it was really uncivilized. However, this was also the time to test whether Li Jian of the Misty School cared about Zhang Xiaohu. If Li Jian allowed Lu Qingyang to barge in and cause trouble, needless to say, Zhang Xiaohua might just leave. After all, respect was mutual. If you didn't respect me at all, why would I waste money to give you the elixir for free? Therefore Zhang Xiaohu unconsciously clenched his fist. Please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please collect, please tip, thank you. Chapter 790. Sure enough, before Lu Qingyang could approach, a cold snort was heard. Junior brother, what are you doing? What am I doing? Looking for Shernyo? Lu Qingyang seemed to be still drunk. I heard that Shernyo was pushed into the meeting hall. I haven't had enough wine yet. Of course, I'm looking for him to drink. Although he couldn't see Li Jian's expression from Li Jian's tone, he could hear a kind of concern, anger, and regret. Junior brother, if there's nothing else, it's better to strengthen your strength and focus more on martial arts. No matter how much you drink, it will only harm your body. And second senior, you didn't say it for 1 or 2 years. Do you think it's useful? I listened to you earlier, but what happened in the end? What else can I do but lie on this recliner? I can't even stand up. What martial arts can I practice? Second senior, you all practice internal strength. You don't know the pain we have to go through. Your dantian is broken, so you may be able to move like a normal person. But what about us? How do you know the techniques of those dead experts at Lingering Fragrance Peak? My joints are all crushed. It's impossible for me to move even if I want to. Seeing that Li Jian was silent, Lu Qingyang continued. I know that second senior brother is also frustrated. And there are many things that I haven't told you. These disciples of mine have all been crushed. Their lives are difficult, and they are better off dead than alive. Li Jian sighed. Fifth junior, do you think I don't know? Although I manage the disciples who practice internal strength, how can I not know your pain? It's just that. Speaking of this, Li Jian let out a long breath and continued. So you and Shernyo drinking too much, I basically don't care. Hearing the 2 words Shernyo, Lu Qingyang shouted again. Right, where is Shernyo? Wasn't he called over? Where did he go? Speaking of the stone cow's whereabouts, Li Jian's expression was strange. Although he did not trust Zhang Xiaohu very much, the stone cow and Zhou Mufeng had been in the cottage for a long time without any movement. If the situation was not right, they should have made some noise long ago. However, even if there were some problems, he had already promised Zhang Xiaohu to try. Of course, there was no reason for Lu Qingyang to disturb him. Thinking up to this point, Li Jian's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that this cheap direct disciple really has a solution? Unknowingly, Li Jian's tone became a little faster. His tone was also different from before. He smiled and said, I still need to tell you about today's matter in detail. Don't be noisy. Stay here and wait first. It's almost time. Wait for a meal's time. Perhaps I will let you witness a miracle. Miracle? Lu Qingyang couldn't help but laugh. Second senior brother, I'm not a child anymore. You're trying to fool me with that so-called miracle. If you let the stone ox walk 2 steps in front of me. I'm not waiting for Lu Qingyang to finish, Li Jian mysteriously said. Fifth brother, as the ancients say, everything is possible. What you think may not be impossible. What? Hearing this, Lu Qingyang woke up from his drunken stupor and said excitedly, Second brother, are you telling the truth? Li Jian smiled and didn't say anything. He turned his head and said, Little Chu, you go down first. Don't tell anyone what you just said. A voice was heard. This disciple understands. After a long while, the surroundings quieted down. Lu Qingyang asked again, Second senior brother, what's going on? Could it be that the Lingering Fragrance Peak's godly doctor came? I heard from the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak that they have a godly doctor who can heal our joints. Hee, don't listen to the nonsense of those little bastards. I asked clearly that day. After your joints are crushed, they can't be healed. Those godly doctors can only let you walk with crutches. Even ordinary people can't compare. Rather than that, it's better to be paralyzed first and preserve your reputation. Our Dantian has been exposed. Their so-called godly doctors are simply helpless. They want to use this to tempt us to surrender. It's too easy for them. Then where did second brother get this miracle? Lu Qingyang was quite puzzled. Li Jian seemed to put a finger to his mouth, indicating Lu Qingyang to calm down. But how could Lu Qingyang hold back? After a while he couldn't help but whisper, Second brother, what are you doing? If you have something to say, can't you say it clearly? Li Jian glanced at Lu Qingyang and said, Words can be said clearly, but this wine can't be drunk anymore. Lu Qingyang shook his head. Second brother, you also know that I'm addicted to wine. I can't be without wine every day. How about this? If you can really cure me, I'll be like before every day. Hee, this is what you said. I didn't force you. Don't take it seriously. Don't, second brother. Old Fifth Lu, have never said this before. Since I've said it today, I naturally have to keep my promise. Lu Qingyang argued. Zhang Xiaohu was about to continue listening when he heard a voice next to him. Second brother, this Grandmaster Lu is quite interesting. Zhang Xiaohu was delighted. He turned around and said, Xiaohua, are you done? Wasn't it Zhang Xiaohua who was standing next to him? She also pricked up her ears to listen to the conversation between the 2 Misty School's grandmasters outside. And it's all done. This stone ox is really hard to cure. It's probably related to the external cultivation method he cultivates. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. It's estimated that it took about the same time as Captain He to recover. Then she clapped her hands again and said, Second brother, I've finished my business, so I'll go back first. Oh, by the way, there aren't many meridian nourishing pills left. It can't heal a few disciples. However, I think your Grandmaster Li also wants to see the effect of Martial Uncle Zhou's recovery for the time being, so he won't look for you for the time being. Take a look at the time. I have to wait until Miss O is cured before I can find time to refine pills for them. Zhang Xiaohu asked anxiously, Xiaohua, your body is fine, right? Even if you want to save them, you can't ruin your body. Zhang Xiaohua patted Zhang Xiaohu's shoulder and said, Second brother, don't worry. I'm just a little tired just now. It's not a problem. I'll go back and sleep. Okay, I'm leaving. You deal with these 2 grandmasters. After that, she didn't forget to say, By the way, I've just unsealed the stone ox and the others' acupoints. You should mend them a few more times. Don't miss any flaws. Then, without hiding from Zhang Xiaohu, she made a hand seal and magically disappeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu. Wow, Zhang Xiaohu was completely petrified. He really didn't expect that this little guy who had been following behind his, but since childhood could actually disappear like the immortals in the legends. How was this still some Qinggong? It was still some ethereal steps. That's right, that day in the Blood Wolf pack, it definitely wasn't some ethereal steps. At this time, Zhang Xiaohu came to his senses. He was really a little slow. Zhang Xiaohu looked at the 2 people lying quietly on the hay. Following the instructions, he opened the door of the thatched hut. Li Jian and Lu Qingyang were talking. When they heard the door open, Li Jian's face immediately showed an inquiring expression. He wanted to ask, but he didn't dare to. Lu Qingyang said in a rough voice, "Hey, who is this kid?" Zhang Xiaohu walked forward with a smile and saluted. "Disciple Zhang Xiaohu is Wen Wenhai's disciple. I pay my respects to Grandmaster Lu." "Ahai? When did this kid take in a disciple? Why did he take in such an old disciple? Is he crazy?" This Zhang Xiaohu was sweating profusely. "Ancestor Lu, it's fine if I'm old, but you don't have to criticize me like this. To think that I was still thinking about treating your joints." Li Jian hurriedly scolded. "Fifth brother, this Zhang Xiaohu is our Misty School's official disciple. He was taken in at Misty Peak. Don't you remember? You even went to eat his apprenticeship wine." "Is that so?" Lu Qingyang scratched his head strenuously and said, "How can I not remember? It seems that I drank a lot at Misty Peak. Oh, I remember. Yes, it's you. I scolded Ahai so much at that time. Why didn't he pick a good Eagle Hall disciple? Why did he pick you, an ordinary one?" This time, Li Jian was also sweating. He hurriedly stopped him, Little Tiger, Stone Cow and Zhou Mufeng. The two of them, in fact. When he saw the smile on Zhang Xiaohu's face just now, Li Jian's heart was mostly relieved. However, if he didn't get Zhang Xiaohu's affirmation, he couldn't be at ease. Therefore, he immediately changed his address to Little Tiger. Unfortunately, before Zhang Xiaohu could speak, Lu Qingyang interrupted again. "What? Stone Cow is given to this kid to treat? Second brother, are you crazy?" Li Jian finally couldn't bear it and said angrily, "Fifth brother, shut up. Listen to what Little Tiger says. He has already cured a disciple of the medicine hall in Misty Peak." At this time, Li Jian seemed to have forgotten his doubts just now. His trust was completely on Zhang Xiaohu's side. How is this possible? Lu Qingyang didn't hold back. Misty Peak is full of young disciples. Only a few of the official disciples have their martial arts crippled. Those disciples of the medicine hall who have their martial arts crippled are also here. Who is he going to treat? When Li Jian heard this, he came to a realization. Although Lu Qingyang's temperament was boorish, he was also meticulous. What he said made sense. Zhang Xiaohu naturally narrated He Tianxu's experience in a neither fast nor slow manner. This guy is indeed vicious and merciless. When Li Jian heard this, he couldn't help but feel resentful. Like I said, there is no good person in this lingering fragrance peak. Back then when I saw that sissy Zhong Pei, I felt that he was somewhat educated and reasonable. Turns out he has a vicious heart. How can Zhao Jian not turn bad after following such a person? It's a pity that he is still an innocent young man in our Misty School. When he came to Misty Peak, he became a pest. These are the crimes of the lingering fragrance cult, too many to list. Well, this old man was going to go overboard again. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly smiled. So this disciple is also afraid that this method won't work. If something bad happens to my master or martial uncle, I won't be able to explain. So Little Tiger, you're doing the right thing. Our Misty School's direct disciple, what kind of status is that? If you don't have 100% confidence, of course, you can't do it casually. Li Jian praised Zhang Xiaohu. Lu Qingyang didn't pay much attention to them. He just sat on the recliner and looked at the half-closed wooden door. He raised his voice and said, "Where is Stone Cow? If he was cured, there should have been some movement. Could it be that he was killed by you?" Zhang Xiaohu was embarrassed. He smiled apologetically and said, "Don't worry, Grandmaster Lu. Martial Uncle Shi's acupoints have been sealed by me. He's resting inside." "What? You actually sealed his acupoints?" Not only was Lu Qingyang surprised, even Li Jian looked at Zhang Xiaohu with a strange expression. Chapter 791. Seeing the expressions of the two grandmasters, Zhang Xiaohu's heart skipped a beat. He thought to himself, "Not good, something must have gone wrong." Sure enough, Lu Qingyang sneered. "Xiaohu, my grand disciple, it's not that I'm underestimating your martial arts. When you entered the Misty School, I also attended your apprenticeship banquet. You've only practiced martial arts for a few years, yet you still dare to boast that you sealed your martial Uncle Shi's acupuncture points. Do you know what martial arts your martial uncle practices? Well, now he remembered that he went to their banquet. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohu knew that there was a problem. At that time, Xiaohua said that the stone cow's bones and tendons were much stronger than ordinary experts. Presumably the martial arts they practice are different. What should I do? Li Jian also said suspiciously, your martial uncle sure is practicing the external martial arts of the iron shirt. Although his weak point is broken and his joints are crushed, his acupoints have been refined for dozens of years. To be honest, without 10 or 20 years of internal energy cultivation, not to mention sealing his acupoints, even Li Jian couldn't think of a good analogy. He just wanted to explain the difficulty of striking acupoints to Zhang Xiaohu, but at this point he couldn't say anything. Just as Zhang Xiaohu was about to speak, he heard a voice that sounded like a golden bell ringing. Ouch, it hurts so much. Oh no. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he knew that his sealing of the acupuncture points was useless. Without greeting the two martial ancestors, he turned around and jumped into the thatched hut. When Li Jian pushed Lu Qingyang into the thatched hut, they saw Zhang Xiaohu clenching his fist and hitting the acupuncture points all over the stone cow's body again and again. Looking at the stone cow, its four limbs were constantly twitching. It wanted to move, but it couldn't. Beads of sweat were also dripping down the stone cow's body. What are you doing? Li Jian left Lu Qingyang behind and quickly stepped forward. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly shouted, Martial Ancestor Li, quickly help me seal Martial Uncle Shi's acupoints. His joints have just been fixed. If he moves them carelessly, all our previous efforts will be wasted. Lu Qingyang, on the other hand, was overjoyed. Isn't it just treating joints? Why is it so painful? Stone cow, you're afraid of pain too? Zhang Xiaohu raised his voice and said, Grandmaster Lu, don't mock me. I had to recrush all the joints in Martial Uncle Shi's body before treating him. This pain is really too unbearable. Ah. Lu Qingyang opened his mouth wide and said, Good boy Xiaohu, my grand disciple. Your hands are really ruthless. Then he shouted at the stone cow. Stone cow, I'm watching you. If you're a man, then don't move. I want to see what kind of pain can make our Misty School's #1 tough guy cry out in pain. You don't say. Whether it was Zhang Xiaohu or Li Jian who wanted to press down on the stone cow's acupoints, the stone cow actually stopped moving with just a few words from Lu Qingyang. Yes, although the stone cow's hands and feet were still trembling slightly, and its teeth were still chattering, it didn't move anymore. Lu Qingyang proudly said, Like I said, who is our stone cow? This little bit of pain is nothing. We don't even need to wipe away our tears to get through it. Old Willow, laugh all you want. You'll have to suffer this sooner or later. When the time comes, let me see you make a fool of yourself. The stone cow couldn't help but cry out. Of course, he had forgotten the seniority. Io. Hearing the stone cow's words, Li Jian's face was filled with joy. Needless to say, since the stone cow admitted that what Zhang Xiaohu did was effective, there was no reason for him to doubt it. Li Jian whispered, Stone cow, tell your martial uncle, how do you feel? It hurts. It hurts like hell. The stone cow replied without hesitation. The three people in the room fainted. Needless to say, anyone who saw it knew. Li Jian patiently said, Other than pain, what else do you feel? Like the joints, or the inside of your body? Yes, all the bones in my body are burning hot, especially the joints. It feels like there's a fire burning inside. It feels similar to when I took the bone strengthening pill years ago. It's just that I can't practice martial arts now. Li Jian raised his eyebrows. Zhang Xiaohu muttered, Bone strengthening pill? What's that? What happened to Zhou Mufeng? His bones weren't crushed, right? Lu Qingyang finally noticed the other person lying on the ground. Li Jian also remembered and walked forward to take a look. He raised his head and said, Xiaohu, does it hurt to repair your dantian? When can Zhou Mufeng's acupuncture point be unsealed? Repair his dantian? Lu Qingyang raised his head and said, Xiaohu, my good grand disciple, are you an immortal from the heavens? You can even do this kind of thing to recover inner strength? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I've embarrassed myself in front of the two martial ancestors. Actually, Martial Uncle Zhang's acupuncture point was only effective earlier. It doesn't matter if I unseal it now. It doesn't hurt to repair his dantian. After he finished speaking, he walked forward and unsealed Zhou Mufeng's acupuncture point with his finger. This technique was learned by the direct disciples of the Misty School. After Zhou Mufeng's acupuncture point was unsealed, he saw Li Jian's enlarged face. He couldn't help but be startled. He immediately covered his chest with his hands and rolled back. Martial Uncle Li? Li Jian frowned and scolded. Zhou Mufeng, how do you feel now? I'm a little cold, Zhou Mufeng said without hesitation. Ha ha ha. Lu Qingyang laughed and said, Xiao Zhou, my second brother is asking you, how is your dantian repair? Oh, Zhou Mufeng came to his senses and muttered, Martial Uncle Lu, please don't blame me. I thought I was sleeping in my room. Then he scratched his head and said worriedly, Martial Uncle Li, this disciple doesn't have any internal energy right now. I can't inspect my dantian. Why don't you take a look yourself? Li Jian glanced at him and said, Nonsense. Do I need to ask you if I can inspect it? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, Martial Ancestor Li, Martial Uncle Zhou's dantian repair is the same as Martial Uncle Shi's. It takes time. I estimate that it will take 20 to 30 days to see results. Even if he uses his internal energy to inspect it, he won't be able to see anything. So it's like this, Li Jian muttered. Lu Qingyang said loudly, It's only 30 days. It will pass after a few rounds of drinking. Isn't that easy? Zhang Xiaohu looked at the sky and cupped his hands. Martial ancestors, this disciple came here for this important matter. I hope the two of you can keep it a secret. Martial uncles, other than Martial Uncle Shi who can't move, Martial Uncle Zhou has nothing to worry about. Well, this is all this disciple can do. It's getting late, and I have to hurry back to the Misty Hall. If I stay too long, the disciples of the lingering fragrance peak may become suspicious. Xiaohu, you can't stay one more night, or at this time. Li Jian didn't doubt this cheap disciple of his and only wanted him to do more. Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly. Martial ancestor. This disciple obtained this heaven-defying ability by chance. The number of people I can treat in a day is limited. Even if you want this disciple to repair your dantian today, I don't have the ability. You should take a look at the situation of the two martial uncles first. Little Tiger, my good grand disciple, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Stone Cow is already like this. Why don't you stay and drink with me? It'll be a welcome dinner for you. Lu Qingyang grinned. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu said seriously, Martial Ancestor Lu, this wine can be drunk, but how many disciples can it fill their stomachs? Lu Qingyang was furious and was about to scold him when Zhang Xiaohu turned to Li Jian and said, Then this disciple will go back. Martial ancestors, you don't need to move. This disciple already knows the way here. It's not completely dark yet, so this disciple can find his way out. How can that be? You're a direct disciple of our Misty School. It's only right to send you out. Li Jian smiled and led Zhang Xiaohu out. He bumped into Martial Uncle Bai, who was on duty. Martial Uncle Bai frowned and asked, Martial Uncle Li, you didn't see Zhou Mufeng, did you? This kid just sent Martial Nephew Zhang here, and didn't go back. He's not a lazy person, why ha ha ha. Li Jian patted Martial Uncle Bai's shoulder and said, Don't look for him. Zhou Mufeng has been requisitioned by me. Now, I'll have to trouble you to send Zhang Xiaohu out of the villa. Yes, Martial Uncle. Martial Uncle Bai didn't dare to ask more. He bowed his head and said to Zhang Xiaohu, This way please, Martial Nephew Zhang. Zhang Xiaohu turned around and cupped his hands to Li Jian before leaving. Zhang Xiaohua applied the power of the bone-solidifying pill to the joints of the stone cow. After greeting Zhang Xiaohu, she made a gesture and directly left the misty mountain villa. She came to the mountainside of the Shixin Peak. It wasn't that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to continue the earth escape, but she had consumed too much of her genuine qi and couldn't support the earth escape. Zhang Xiaohua drilled out of the ground and looked around. She found a pile of stones and hid behind it. She took out a primordial stone from her arms and began to absorb the primordial qi inside. At this time, the sky was getting dark. The mountain was facing the northwest. The afterglow of the setting sun shone over, blocking Zhang Xiaohua in the darkness. Zhang Xiaohua calmly absorbed the primordial qi. In the time it took to eat a meal, More than half of the genuine qi in her meridians had been replenished. However, half of the genuine qi flowed into the delusion breaker magic eye in her left hand, which made Zhang Xiaohua feel a burst of pain. In the past few years, the genuine qi of heaven and earth had gradually become denser. However, it was still not enough for Zhang Xiaohua to directly absorb the genuine qi from heaven and earth into her body. She could only rely on the primordial stone for her cultivation. Although the primordial stone was very durable, it was limited after all. Zhang Xiaohua also wanted to use the limited primordial stone for her cultivation. Using the precious primordial stone to feed the delusion breaker magic eye, which she didn't know the function of, was not Zhang Xiaohua's true intention. Therefore, when the genuine qi in her body was slightly sufficient, Zhang Xiaohua stopped absorbing. When Zhang Xiaohua was about to get up and leave, she heard a burst of footsteps. "Hey, is it second brother? Why did you come out so quickly? Won't Ethereal Heights stay for dinner?" Zhang Xiaohua was extremely surprised. But when he released his divine sense, he saw two men walking towards him, one in front and one behind. Moreover, one of them looked slightly familiar. Chapter 792. The two men were both in their 20s and dressed in Misty Hall uniforms. The one in the front had a mustache and yellowish skin. He was taller than Zhang Xiaohu by half a head. The one behind him looked ordinary and disappeared in a crowd. However, Zhang Xiaohua smiled when she saw him. Wasn't he the one who peeped at Huanqi Villa on the top of Shixin Peak that day? The two of them didn't use their qinggong. They just walked step by step along the faintly discernible winding path towards the side of the mountain ridge. They didn't know why they were still here when it was almost dark. Zhang Xiaohua saw that they were disciples of Misty Hall, and did not want to be seen by others. When she was about to make an incantation to escape, a sentence floated to her ear. "Senior brother Ding, there is something I don't know if I should say it." "What is it?" Senior brother Ding was a little impatient. He snorted and said, "In addition to the matter that Zhang Xiaohu is going to be the chief disciple, what else can you be so hesitant about?" Zhang Xiaohua was secretly surprised. As the saying goes, there is no story without coincidences. It's true. I was just randomly running away, and I still managed to meet second brother's competitor. My luck is really good. Let's see what kind of tricks this guy has up his sleeves. It'll be good to tell second brother about it. We don't bully others, but we can't be bullied by others. Damn. Zhang Xiaohua thought that she would not bully others? She had the nerve to think about it. Sure enough, the disciple behind laughed dryly and said, "Haha, it turns out that senior brother Ding has already known it. I also heard it from junior sister Yi at noon. Oh, look at me. Junior sister Xiao has always admired senior brother Ding. She must have told you this news long ago." Senior brother Ding still snorted coldly, and did not stop walking forward slowly. The disciple was bored and carefully followed behind. After a while, as if he couldn't bear the loneliness, he coughed twice and said, "Senior brother Ding, actually, I don't want to say this, but what qualifications does Zhang Xiaohu have to be the chief disciple? He started to practice martial arts at such an old age, and his kung fu is far inferior to senior brother Ding's. Oh, he is not as good as senior brother Du's. It's just that he was lucky and got the favor of Miss O, so he joined our Misty school. Moreover, martial uncle Wen accepted him because of Miss O, but in the end, he soared and became a direct disciple." Senior brother Ding frowned slightly and said nothing. Seeing this, the disciple said again, "In fact, senior brother Ding, it's not a bad thing for senior brother Zhao, senior brother Du and you to come to Shixin Peak. You three are the leaders of our younger generation. Who doesn't know your names? The name of the three beauties of Misty Peak is faintly known by everyone." Zhang Xiaohua, who was eavesdropping, almost laughed out loud. She had just heard Zhang Xiaohu talk about the 6 tigers of Misty Peak the day before yesterday, and now she heard the nondescript 3 beauties of Misty Peak. Of course, she felt very funny. But this sentence was refreshing in senior brother Ding's ears. There was a slight complacency on his face, but there was still some unhappiness on his face, so he did not speak. The disciple was observant and knew that senior brother Ding was a little tempted, so he said, "Think about it, senior brother Ding. When we were in the Piaomiao Peak, Although we were of the same seniority and disciples, what was the treatment of the lineal disciples? What kind of kung fu did they practice? What about us? We can't compare. You can achieve what you have today because of your own hard work and sweat. This is the reason why we, the disciples of Misty Hall, admire you. Nonsense, Senior Brother Ding opened his mouth. Junior Brother Fan, there are some things that cannot be said carelessly. Direct disciples naturally have the treatment of direct disciples. This is something that you and I knew when we first entered Misty School. Moreover, in our generation, Zhang Xiaohu is the only direct disciple. He was already old when he started practicing kung fu, so it is understandable that he has some special treatment. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohu is equally hardworking. Didn't you see that he has only been practicing kung fu for a few years? You must have seen his improvement. After that, he looked at the setting sun and smiled bitterly. This world has always been unfair. If you only know how to ask the heavens for fairness, you can only blame the heavens and accuse others. You can't do anything, let alone practice the peerless martial arts that are revered by tens of thousands of people. Good. Junior Brother Fan heard and immediately gave him a thumbs up. Senior Brother Ding, do you know why I admire you? It is because you never admit defeat and never complain about injustice. You always fight for what you deserve with your own strength. Senior Brother Ding was a little proud at first, but then he became indifferent. He waved his hand and said, I'm not a talented and intelligent person, and I don't have a proud background. What I rely on is only my own efforts and sweat. Sigh, but there is nothing to be proud of. What do you mean, Senior Brother Ding? Junior Brother Fan was puzzled. I know that although Senior Brother Du is younger than Senior Brother Ding, his achievements are not inferior to Senior Brother Ding's. I don't see him working as hard as Senior Brother Ding, so he must be a talented and intelligent person. Then who in the Misty Hall can compare with Senior Brother Ding? Ha ha ha, Senior Brother Ding laughed. Junior Brother Fan, your vision is too narrow. Not to mention that the Misty Hall is only a hall of the fragrance cult, not to mention the Lingxiang Peak. There must be many hidden dragons and crouching tigers among the disciples of the Wuming Hall. We used to be frogs in the well in the Misty Peak. Well, Senior Brother Ding is right. I didn't expect that our vision cannot be limited to the Shixin Peak. It is good that Junior Brother Fan has this idea. In fact, there are still many things in the Misty Hall that you don't know. Senior Brother Ding changed the topic back to the Misty Hall and said happily, you only see that Zhang Xiaohu is a direct disciple and enjoys different treatment from us ordinary disciples. But have you ever thought about how much pressure he has been under in the Shixin Peak these years? How does he feel in his heart? Don't forget that Senior Brother Zhao Jian is a person who will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Before he went to the Orchid Dusk Refinement, he had been suppressing Zhang Xiaohu with the support of Deputy Hall Chief Zhong. Moreover, you only see the halo of Zhang Xiaohu's direct disciple, but you don't see his extraordinary hard work. In fact, as early as in the Misty Peak, I have been paying attention to Zhang Xiaohu. After all, he is the only direct disciple. At that time, I was jealous, but he was not surprised by anything and practiced hard. He is not worse than me. When he went to the Shixin Peak, Zhang Xiaohu did not care about the affairs of the Misty Hall. He was not dispirited because he was excluded. He just immersed himself in practicing. Junior Brother Fan doesn't know about his progress in the past few years, but I know it clearly. Presumably, Zhang Xiaohu's martial arts now is not worse than Junior Brother Fan's. What? How is that possible? Junior Brother Fan was shocked. Although I am not as hardworking as Senior Brother Ding, I have been practicing martial arts for more than 20 years. Zhang Xiaohu has only been practicing for 5 years. How can he catch up with me? Even if a genius like Senior Brother Du is given 5 years, he may be comparable to me in terms of moves. But in terms of internal strength, he must be far behind me. Oh, by the way, Zhang Xiaohu got the cinnabar fruit in the Yulan Canyon. I forgot about it. Then Junior Brother Fan said jealously, this Zhang Xiaohu is so lucky. Hey, you can't think like that. Zhang Xiaohu risked his life to get the cinnabar fruit. Who knows how many senior brothers and junior brothers went with him, but they all died in the mouth of the wolves. There is nothing to be jealous about. Besides, didn't Chang'e and Chen also take the cinnabar fruit? He is not the only one who is lucky. But junior brother Fan hesitated. Senior brother Ding, are you going to give up the position of the chief disciple to Zhang Xiaohu? Chief disciple? Senior brother Ding laughed. I'm afraid this is the title that the dead senior brother Zhao always wanted. He racked his brains and did not hesitate to use the lives of his fellow disciples as the price to get this title. What was the result? He ended up being cut into pieces. This empty title, even if Zhang Xiaohu gets it, what can he do? His martial arts are not good, and his ability is not good. How long do you think he can hold it? In fact, I'm not the only one who thinks so. I guess junior brother Du also thinks so. Then, if we let Zhang Xiaohu get this position now, it is obvious that he has the upper hand. It will be difficult for the two senior brothers to fight for it again. So what? In fact, Zhang Xiaohu's performance in the Yulan Dusk refinement was really excellent. Not only did he bring back 4 carriages of spiritual herbs, but he also rescued 3 female disciples. Well, there were also the disciples of the Tuodan Hall. If I were there, I may not be able to do it. Although I am a little jealous of the Hall Master's reward, I am also convinced. Especially Zhang Xiaohu has won the favor of Lingering Fragrance Peak, so there is no need to talk about it. What can the Hall Master do? Maybe he wants to add fuel to the fire. Later, senior brother Ding took a long breath and said, I know what you want to say, but I have always been open and above board. Zhang Xiaohu is my junior brother. Even if I want to compete with him for the position of the chief disciple, I have to use open and above board means. I just want the Hall Master to give me and junior brother Du a fair chance. Let us prove ourselves with martial arts, so that we are qualified to sit in the position of the chief disciple. Behind him, junior brother Fan chuckled and said no more. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua had some thoughts. She originally thought that these two people were talking about shady things in this remote place, and were afraid that they would harm her second brother. However, after listening for a long time, she found that they were actually so open and above board. They didn't want to use any dirty tricks and only wanted a fair chance. However, senior brother Ding is a little persistent. He just said that there is no absolute fairness in this world. How can there be a fair chance now? Zhang Xiaohua thought sympathetically. In the matter of the chief disciple, you no longer have a fair chance. Chapter 793. When it came to the fairness of competing for the position of chief disciple, it was true that all the favorable factors were leaning towards Zhang Xiaohu, not to mention the support of Lingering Fragrance Peak, not to mention Yang Ruping's urging to stay, not to mention Zhang Xiaohu's identity as a direct disciple, and the support of direct disciples such as Wen Wenhai, Xueqing, and Lu Yueming behind him. Just the strength of the thousands of Misty School disciples in Misty Mountain Villa after being treated by Zhang Xiaohu was absolutely not something that Ding Chao and Du Feng could compare with. And the martial arts that Ding Chao and Du Feng could rely on were even more impossible for Zhang Xiaohu to give them any fairness. Not to mention the Lingering Fragrance Peak's Su Huan Pill and Su Huan Mantra. As long as these internal strength mantras were cultivated for 10 years, their future achievements would definitely not be something that the two of them could compare with. Now that Zhang Xiaohu was simultaneously cultivating the Misty Divine Technique and Su Huan Mantra, these two internal strength mantras with completely different attributes, the effect of cultivating the two together was absolutely not as simple as 1 + 1. Its power was something that even Zhang Xiaohua and the people of Lingering Fragrance Peak could not recklessly guess. And, not to mention the qi-generating pill in Zhang Xiaohua's purse. From the beginning, this fairness did not exist. As for Zhang Xiaohua, she made a hand seal and directly used Earth Escape to return to the pill room. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace in the pill room was still making some rumbling sounds as it methodically produced the pill. Zhang Xiaohua used her divine sense to observe for a moment. She could still see the pill liquid and was slightly anxious in her heart. There was still some time before the pill was successfully produced, and the pill was pulled out. According to Oyan's situation, she should be able to last until then. However, no one could guarantee that there would not be any other changes during this period. After casting a few hand seals into the pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua calmed down and organized her thoughts a little. The most important thing now was Oyan's life. Next was the recovery of the thousands of people in Misty Mountain Villa's martial arts. Thinking about thousands of people, Zhang Xiaohua's head was about to explode. How long would this treatment take? Although there was a saying that as long as you have the time, an iron pestle can be ground into a needle, Zhang Xiaohua was also somewhat unwilling to waste a lot of time on this. Well, of course, saving people couldn't be called a waste of time. However, doing the same thing day after day was also extremely boring. Alas, Zhang Xiaohua sighed and secretly said, "It seems that one pill furnace is not enough. The thousands of people need a lot of pills. It's better to prepare early. There is only one earth fire in this pill room. I have to find another place and preheat the other 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. After refining Oyan's awakening pill, I will start to refine the vein nourishing pill and bone congealing pill." Fortunately, this time I went deep into the Yulon Grand Canyon and collected a lot of spiritual herbs. Well, I can also take 30% of the pill benefits from the Misty Mountain Villa. Oh, this is bad. I previously said that I would give the pill to second brother. I have to find a time to go back on my words. After thinking, Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and escaped again to find a new pill room. On the Shixin Peak, Zhang Xiaohua was already somewhat familiar with the place. The places that she had been to before did not have any traces of a pill room. She only chose places that she had not been to before or places that had no traces to search. While she was searching, she heard the sound of swords and sabers. There should be very few people on this mountain peak. The disciples of the Misty Mountain Villa are all in the medicinal field below. Who would come here? Moreover, there is the sound of swords and sabers? Could it be that there's some kind of scheme happening again? Zhang Xiaohua thought as he rode the wind towards the source of the sound. Before she reached that place, she heard a voice. "Senior Du, your swordsmanship has improved greatly in a few days. This little brother is really not your opponent. I am ashamed. Then Du Feng's voice sounded. "Junior Wang, I am really sorry. Did that move hurt you?" "Hehe, I almost got hurt. I don't blame Senior Du, it's just that these 2 days of swordsmanship have been very tiring. I am a little distracted. I have troubled Junior Wang. Oh, here are a few blood replenishing pills. Please take them. That move just now might have hurt your flesh. It is better to take them early." "It's okay," Junior Wang said and reached out to take the pills. Then he said, "Senior Du, it is not early anymore. Let's go down the mountain early. I know that Senior Du is very hardworking in cultivation, but you have to strike a balance between work and rest. Don't make haste, slow down." "Oh, I understand Junior Wang's meaning. Junior Wang has been practicing with me these few days. It must be very tiring. You should go back and rest first. I see that it is late at night, and it is a good time to cultivate. I want to stay here for a while." This Junior Wang thought for a while and hesitated. "Senior Du, I don't know if I should say something, but we are senior brothers. I still want to give you a piece of advice." "Junior Wang, please speak." Du Feng said neither quickly nor slowly. "I know that a few days ago, I heard that Zhang Xiaohu is going to be the chief disciple. I am not convinced and want to surpass him in martial arts. But martial arts is only one of them. Zhang Xiaohu's martial arts are not as good as yours. What you are thinking is probably Senior Ding. But when 2 tigers fight, one must be injured. Then won't Zhang Xiaohu be the fisherman who benefits?" Alas, Du Feng sighed and looked at the night without saying a word. The 3 beauties of ethereal sect used to be led by Zhao Jian. Now, Zhang Xiaohu can't be ranked among them. "Senior Du, you don't have to work so hard. You should know when to stop practicing martial arts." Seeing that Junior Wang still wanted to say something, Du Feng waved his hand and said, "Junior Wang, I appreciate your kindness, but alas, a person's life is short. What can I pursue? I still want to try my best to fight for it." Junior Wang nodded and cupped his hands to say goodbye. Du Feng waited until Junior Wang had walked far away before he turned around and walked to a slightly steep area. With a leap, he landed on a mountain rock. With his hands behind his back, he stared at the sea of clouds in the darkness. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long time, He let out a long breath and sat down cross-legged. His eyes focused on his nose, and his nose focused on his heart. He was actually cultivating his Nigong. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Du Feng for a while and felt touched. Du Feng was the most talkative disciple she met on Shixin Peak. From the way he treated people and the way he handled things, she had a good impression of him. Previously, Zhang Xiaohua didn't think much about it, but now that she thought about the words she heard in the ethereal hall, how could she not know that Du Feng was also one of the most outstanding people on Shixin Peak? It could be said that even her second brother Zhang Xiaohu couldn't compare with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be favored by Aunt Qin and be asked to coordinate the affairs of the ethereal hall and the pill-expanding hall. As for martial arts, there was no need to mention it. The name Three Beauties of Ethereal Hall was not for nothing. Of course, Du Feng would have some thoughts about the title of the chief disciple. Thinking about it, the Shixin Peak was originally dominated by Zhao Jian, but after Zhao Jian was killed, Zhang Xiaohu suddenly rose up. Except for martial arts, he was better than Du Feng and Ding Chao in all other aspects. In other aspects, these two people couldn't rely on their own strength to equalize in a short time. So, they could only rely on Zhang Xiaohu's obvious shortcomings. Pursuit. Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously thought of Du Feng's words just now. Life is only a few decades, but this is the pursuit. Yes, second brother's pursuit is to revitalize the Misty School. Du Feng and Ding Chao's pursuit is to surpass each other and become the top figure in the ethereal hall. What about me? Where is my pursuit? Zhang Xiaohua was at a loss for a moment. Zhang Xiaohu's pursuit, Du Feng's pursuit and Ding Chao's pursuit were not worth mentioning in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. Indeed, as long as he took out the qi-generating pill or the meridians nourishing pill and gave one to Du Feng and Ding Chao, with their many years of experience in martial arts, it would only take a night's effort to surpass all the disciples of the ethereal hall and become the top figure. Even if it was a little difficult for Zhang Xiaohu to pursue, but from the current situation, under the influence of Zhang Xiaohua, Zhang Xiaohu was following the plan in his heart step by step and realizing it bit by bit. He could help others realize their pursuit in life, but who could help him realize his own pursuit? However, even if there was someone who could help him realize it, where was his pursuit? In fact, as early as when Zhang Xiaohua stepped into the path of immortality, and even when he was in the oneness of heaven and man, he had occasionally thought about these things. However, he had never thought about it in detail because he was worried about Zhang Xiaohu's safety and worried about his parents at home. He was still far away from making such a decision. Now he had found Zhang Xiaohu and everything was fine at home. Zhang Xiaohua did not seem to have any goal to pursue in front of him. Moreover, in this dark night, when he heard Du Feng's voice, he could not help but feel the same and fell into deep thought. Just as Zhang Xiaohua stood behind the tree, frowning and thinking carefully, Du Feng, who was sitting on a protruding rock not far away, had a change. Du Feng's clothes fluttered in the mountain wind from time to time. Above his head, there was a faint white gas that rose to the sky. However, before it could take shape, it was blown away by the mountain wind. His hair that was scattered in the air swept past his red and white face, as if he was preparing to break through. Du Feng's expression kept changing. The white mist on top of his head scattered and gathered, but it still couldn't take shape. Not long after, bean-sized beads of sweat dripped down from his temples, which were then blown dry by the mountain wind. All of a sudden, Du Feng, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. He lowered his head and looked at the distant lights at the foot of the mountain. He clenched his teeth, and his cheeks swelled up. Soon after, he closed his eyes again, and the expression on his face became even more solemn. The color of his face also changed even more rapidly, following which, the white qi above his head actually began to slowly condense. Although it was not as thick and straight as Zhang Xiaohu's in the Yulon Grand Canyon, it had already begun to condense. At this moment, Du Feng, who had his eyes closed, had a hint of joy on his face. He must have worked hard for many days, and actually had a breakthrough today. Unfortunately, just as the white gas condensed, a strong mountain wind blew from above the clouds with a "hoo" sound, blowing the white gas away. Calm. There are more chapters. Chapter 794. With a "pu" sound, Du Feng spat out a mouthful of blood against the wind. As soon as the blood was spat out, it was blown back by the strong wind and covered Du Feng's face. Even the front of his shirt was stained with blood, following which his hands and feet went soft. The internal energy that was rushing through his meridians was now like a headless fly, directly running amok in his meridians. What's going on? Zhang Xiaohua was thinking about her own goals, and did not notice Du Feng's situation. When she was alerted by the sound of Du Feng vomiting blood and looked up, Du Feng had already shriveled up on the mountain rock, almost without any signs of life. Qi deviation. With a glance, Zhang Xiaohua immediately understood that Du Feng must have tried to force his internal energy to break through but failed. Instead, it caused the internal energy to backfire and cause qi deviation. And the legendary qi deviation. Zhang Xiaohua had always been talking about it. Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. In her mind, there was no thought of saving or not saving Du Feng. She immediately pulled herself out from behind the tree and rode the wind to the mountain rock where Du Feng was. At this time, Du Feng was already unconscious. Zhang Xiaohua was not afraid of exposing her identity. She placed a finger, and a strand of true energy flowed into Du Feng's meridians. Although Zhang Xiaohua had rushed over the moment he saw that Du Feng had gone berserk, Du Feng's meridians had already turned into a mess in the span of a few breaths. Not to mention the internal energy that had gone out of control. Most of Du Feng's meridians had been torn apart by the internal energy. It was not an exaggeration to say that Du Feng's meridians were riddled with holes. Although Zhang Xiaohua did not know what kind of internal energy Du Feng practiced, she had previously repaired the meridians of Zhang Xiaohu and He Tianshu. Thus, she was not unfamiliar with the internal energy cultivation method of the Misty School. With a few more strands of true energy, she easily gathered the internal energy that was crazily flowing through Du Feng's meridians. Even the scattered internal energy that was scattered into the air was gathered into the dantian. Following that, Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate. She took out a jade bottle from her bosom and placed a meridian-nourishing pill into Du Feng's mouth. Just when Zhang Xiaohua wanted to use her true energy to wrap around the meridian-nourishing pill and help Du Feng repair his meridians, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She thought to herself, previously, when I repaired his dantian and meridians, I was the one who sent the medicinal energy to the damaged areas. This effect is naturally excellent. However, there are thousands of people in the Misty Mountain Villa. If I have to treat them one by one, it won't be a problem. If I give the meridian-nourishing pill to Du Feng without my true energy interfering, I wonder how effective it will be? Thus, Zhang Xiaohua sat behind Du Feng and placed a finger on his arm. She used her true energy to feel the effects of the meridian-nourishing pill, while her true energy did not interfere. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua discovered that even if her true energy did not interfere with the medicinal energy of the meridian-nourishing pill, the medicinal energy still flowed along Du Feng's meridians. When it reached the damaged areas of his meridians, some of the medicinal energy remained and repaired them. However, the amount of medicinal energy was random and was not as precise as Zhang Xiaohua's true energy. After one cycle, the medicinal energy of the meridian-nourishing pill had been used up by more than half. The remaining medicinal energy no longer flowed into his meridians and remained in his dantian. Seeing this effect, Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, it seems that as long as Du Feng consumes the meridian-nourishing pill, whether or not my true energy helps to refine the medicinal energy, the medicinal energy will repair the damaged areas of his meridians or dantian. If the meridian-nourishing pill is like this, then the bone-congealing pill should be the same. It seems that in the future, I only need to pass the pills to second brother, and I don't need to do it myself. Just as she was thinking, she felt Du Feng's body move as if he was about to wake up. Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and slapped the acupuncture point on his back to wake him up. She said in a hoarse voice, "Brat, hurry up and circulate your qi. This old man will give you a hand." Du Feng woke up in a daze. Before he could check the condition of his meridians, he was startled by a voice behind him. "Senior, who are you?" "Nonsense. If you don't circulate your qi, this old man will leave." Zhang Xiaohua was rather impatient. To be honest, this person was Zhang Xiaohu's competitor. Even though it was her duty to help, she still felt a little awkward. When Du Feng heard this, he didn't dare to ask any more questions. He immediately gathered the inner strength in his dantian and channeled it along the meridians that he used to cultivate. It went straight to the acupoint that he had failed to break through previously. Just as Du Feng's inner qi rushed to the acupuncture point, he felt a small and unstoppable inner qi appear out of thin air. It supported his inner qi and forcefully broke through the acupuncture point that he thought was unbreakable. Du Feng only felt a rumbling sound in his ears. Soon after, his mind felt incomparably comfortable. His inner qi rushed into a whole new world. Success! I finally succeeded. This was the only thought in Du Feng's mind. I've been trying to break through for 3 years. Just a moment ago, I almost went crazy. I actually managed to break through with the help of a strand of inner qi from this person. Did the heavens specially arrange for someone to help me because they saw how hard I was cultivating? At this time, the rough voice sounded again. Kid, I have already helped you repair your meridians. In the future, don't be so reckless. There is still some medicinal power in your dantian. You can slowly refine it. It will be helpful for your cultivation. Du Feng didn't dare to look back. He was afraid of offending the senior expert. He could only respectfully say, I know. I will definitely remember Senior's kindness. I just don't know Senior's name. Please enlighten me. However, no matter how Du Feng spoke, he couldn't hear the voice behind him. When Du Feng mustered up his courage to look back, he saw that there was no one behind him. This Du Feng looked at the barren mountain rocks behind him, and then looked at the path he came from. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. What kind of qigong is this? It actually didn't make any sound at all? Could it be the inner elder of Lingering Fragrance Peak? But why would the elder of Lingering Fragrance Peak come to Shixin Peak? Why would he give me, a disciple of Misty School, a favor out of nowhere? Du Feng didn't dare to think anymore. He just stood up and respectfully knelt on the ground. He kowtowed 9 times and said loudly, I am Du Feng of Misty School. I don't know Senior's name. Once again, I thank Senior for saving my life. At this time, he heard a voice at the foot of the mountain. Senior Du, where are you? It was the voice of a woman. When Du Feng heard this, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He raised his voice and said, Junior Sister Li? I am here. After saying that, his body rose up. Du Feng's body tilted in the air and barely landed on the ground. Du Feng said, Oh this? How did my internal strength increase so much? My qigong is also much more powerful. Following which he easily flew over. After a few leaps, he directly headed in the direction of Junior Sister Li. Not long after, a faint voice could be heard. Senior brother Du, it's already so late. Don't be so hard on yourself. Before the voice finished speaking, Du Feng said, I know Junior Sister Li. Do you know then? Junior Sister Li's surprised voice was heard again. Ah, Senior Du, congratulations on entering. Her voice was getting lower and lower. On the high mountain, Zhang Xiaohua stood with her hands behind her back. Her face was full of smiles, as if she didn't regret that she had helped her second brother to have a strong competitor. The ancients said, mutton stewed noodles, mapo tofu, the matters between men and women. Nothing in the world should be like this. Second brother has Chang'e, Du Feng also has Junior Sister Li, and that senior brother Ding also seems to have Junior Sister Yi with a face full of pimples. But what about my dream? Where is she? Seeing Du Feng and Junior Sister Li leaving hand in hand, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the dream again. The girl he couldn't forget. The blush on her forehead, the big dimples on her face, and the mole on her chin. Everything was engraved in his mind, and didn't seem to be destroyed by time after not seeing each other for several years. But what about Nie Xiaoyu? Is she okay? For a moment, another face seemed to appear in Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Is this my pursuit? In the strong mountain wind, Zhang Xiaohua stood straight. There was no moonlight tonight, and the dark night covered everything. Zhang Xiaohua's figure was not in the darkness, and no one could see him. Although the wind was strong, it couldn't blow Zhang Xiaohua in the slightest. There were not many things in the world of mortals, but they drowned Zhang Xiaohua's thoughts. Pursuit was a very simple yet complicated question, but it actually stumped this cultivator of the immortal path. After a long time, the mountain wind didn't calm down like usual. Instead, it became more and more violent, blowing away trees and sand. On the top of the mountain, Zhang Xiaohua was still as straight as a nail, standing still. His eyes were closed, and his brows were slightly furrowed. There was only one word in his mind: pursuit. Yes, life was only a few decades. What did Zhang Xiaohua want to pursue? The night gradually deepened. Zhang Xiaohua still didn't move, and the wind was still raging. The sky was dark, and the clouds were dense, pressing down low. But strangely, there was no thunder or lightning. Not long after, bean-sized raindrops began to drip down. After a few breaths of time, the heavy rain began to pour down. The bright raindrops seemed to connect the sky and the earth. Only the sound of flowing water could be heard between the heavens and the earth. In the rain, Zhang Xiaohua didn't seem to be awake. He was still frowning, deep in thought. However, as Zhang Xiaohua's thoughts deepened, his figure began to blur. First, the strong mountain wind blew his robe. And then slowly, with the wind, the robe gradually became blurry, and then gradually became still. When the rarely seen rain fell in Chuanxiang cult, Zhang Xiaohua's figure became even more faintly discernible. When the raindrops fell on Zhang Xiaohua's body, there was almost no cover. But in the next moment, his figure appeared in the same place again. In this way, Zhang Xiaohua's figure appeared and disappeared faintly. She stood with her hands behind her back like a god, standing on the top of Shixin Peak, and enduring the baptism of the rainstorm. Chapter 795. After the moonlit night, it was a clear blue sky. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the top of Shixin Peak, Zhang Xiaohua's almost invisible figure, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes suddenly opened, and his figure immediately became clear. However, this clarity was different from last night's clarity. This was a kind of existence that was either heavy or elegant. Zhang Xiaohua first habitually opened his mouth to suck in a little of the sun's true essence, and then cast his eyes to the sky where cyan, black and white intertwined. The countless stars that had not yet faded immediately touched Zhang Xiaohua. In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua laughed as if he had been enlightened. Pursuit, what is pursuit? Some people pursue fame, some pursue wealth, some pursue freedom, and some pursue morality. Martial artists pursue the peak of martial arts, and those who practice the way of immortality naturally pursue the peak of the way of immortality. What do I pursue? The ready-made thing is in front of me, but I ignore it. I really turn a blind eye to it. The way of heaven, of course it is the way of heaven. Only the way of heaven is the goal I pursue. In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua gathered the results of his pondering last night into a single word: heavenly way. That mysterious, obscure, secretive, and seemingly unfathomable heavenly way, which seemed to be traceable and without reference, was deeply engraved in Zhang Xiaohua's heart like a starry sky. Wasn't that the heavenly way that Zhang Xiaohua could strive for the rest of his life? Thinking of the way of heaven that he comprehended a few days ago, Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously pursed his lips and smiled. The way of heaven is ethereal and untraceable. If I want to comprehend the way of heaven, it must be my way of heaven. Today's realm is only the realm of heaven, but there are also realm of heaven glimpse, realm of heaven reflection, realm of heaven battle, realm of heaven union, and realm of heaven victory. However, how can an ordinary person like me use my whole life to explore these countless ways of heaven? Now I'm actually looking for something to pursue, just like an ant looking at a watermelon, and wanting to eat it all one day. Aha! Thinking of the ant called Zhang Xiaohua wanted to laugh. Then he rubbed his thumb and index finger, and with a snap of his fingers, he straightened his body and went straight down the mountain. Nonsense, after spending the whole night in this cave, drinking the northwest wind and taking a cold bath, he still needed to take care of the awakening pill in the cave. That was the only hope to save Miss O. However, Zhang Xiaohua's wind and rain were not in vain. At least his heart towards the way of heaven was firmer. Last night's contemplation was not only a tempering of his state of mind, but also a comprehension of the way of heaven. It would also have a great impact on his future path of cultivation. Back to Zhang Xiaohua's alchemy room. His heart was a lot more relaxed. He seemed to have understood that in the short span of a few decades in this world, one would not necessarily have wind and rain as one wished. Everyone would inevitably have some setbacks and hardships. Yan's encounter was also an unavoidable hardship in her life. Even if she could recover safely with his help this time, no one could guarantee that Yan would live a peaceful life in the future. Therefore, he only needed to do his best to help her, and let her safely get through the difficulties. Knowing one's destiny and doing one's best was probably the same principle. Fortunately, when Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense easily penetrated into the alchemy furnace, he saw that the outer layer of the elixir liquid gradually had the vague appearance of an innate formation. He could not help but be delighted. Following that, he inserted a few hand seals. Zhang Xiaohua also discovered that after last night's contemplation, the execution of the incantation today was much smoother. It seemed that the amount of qi consumed was also less. Could it be that thinking in the rain is so awesome? Zhang Xiaohua was again considering whether he would have to sleep outside tonight. Alas, a child without parents is freedom. Since the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was about to finish its elixir production, Zhang Xiaohua naturally did not dare to cause any more trouble. He simply stayed in front of the alchemy furnace and looked at the furnace while comprehending the way of heaven and the formation. When he tried to slightly put down the talisman some time ago, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the rabbit talisman, which he could not completely comprehend for a long time, could now continue to advance. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and had a new idea for cultivation. Since his left hand had the delusion breaker magic eye that could devour qi and divine sense, then cultivating the carefree heart sutra and spirit traction would only take twice the effort with half the effort. On the contrary, it would be more practical to comprehend the formation and the way of heaven. These were not affected by the delusion breaker magic eye. In the next few days, Zhang Xiaohua was unusually free and unfettered in the alchemy room. He comprehended the remaining dozens of talismans of the rabbit talisman one by one. Every time he comprehended one, there would be a new harvest. Zhang Xiaohua, who was happy even if there was no harvest, scratched his ears and cheeks, as if he was scratching an itch. Taking advantage of the free time of cultivation, Zhang Xiaohua found a new alchemy room near the top of the mountain. Of course, this alchemy room was not hidden in the mountain, but used by the disciples of the pill department of the pill expanding hall. There was a passage leading to the outside, but the incense cult abandoned this alchemy room in order to forbid the disciples of the misty hall to refine elixirs. Not only the alchemy furnace was taken away, but the mechanism of the earth fire was also destroyed. But how could Zhang Xiaohua use their mechanism? Once the spell was cast, the earth fire immediately began to burn fiercely. Zhang Xiaohua did not delay, and immediately took out the newly obtained 8 trigrams purple gold furnace from his money pouch, and let it warm up in the earth fire. When he came out, he casually destroyed the passage leading to the alchemy room. Since the disciples of the incense cult were the ones who destroyed it, he could just blame it on them. On this day, the sun was shining brightly. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense was immersed in his Naiwan palace, carefully opening up the rabbit talisman to comprehend it. Suddenly, his nose caught a whiff of a medicinal fragrance, which disappeared in an instant. He actually succeeded in producing the elixir. Zhang Xiaohua quivered and stood up from the praying mat. He released his divine sense and looked inside the alchemy furnace. Sure enough, wherever his divine sense went, he was gradually unable to see the situation within the pill elixir. There was originally a rich medicinal fragrance within the pill furnace, but after being dispersed for a moment, it had already been restrained. Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. He immediately formed a series of hand seals and inserted them into the pill elixir. Immediately, the true energy in his meridians rushed out like a flood and directly rushed into the surface of the huge pill elixir. Zhang Xiaohua was already prepared for this situation. On one hand, he took out the primordial stones that he had prepared beforehand. On the other hand, he carefully controlled the flow of true energy, trying his best to send all of his true energy into the elixir to avoid wastage. Fortunately, after a few days of deep understanding of the heavenly Tao, Zhang Xiaohua's control of true energy had improved tremendously. Although the amount of true energy required to produce the elixir was enormous, he could barely control it. He spent all of his true energy on producing the elixir, unlike in the past where he used all of his true energy to produce the elixir. A portion of his true energy was used to produce the elixir, but most of it was consumed in the gaps of the alchemy furnace. Seeing that he only had half of his true energy left, he was able to support himself until the end of producing the elixir. Furthermore, he did not need to absorb the energy from the primordial stones. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but smile. It seemed that the direction of his cultivation was correct. That night of wind and rain was also correct. Not long after, the pill elixir turned into a pill. It was a huge sphere that was slowly rotating. Zhang Xiaohua's face revealed a dignified expression. He had been refining the elixir for such a long time. Wasn't he waiting for this moment to produce the elixir? He took a deep breath. Holding the primordial stones in his left hand, he did not take them back. His right hand, however, formed a hand seal to produce the elixir. He condensed his true energy, and with a wave of his finger, he sent it into the elixir. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua was far more nervous than any other time he had refined the elixir before. He was afraid that if he sent the hand seal in, there would be a mistake and he would not be able to produce the awakening elixir. As the hand seal was sent in, the spherical elixir shook for a while. Then he heard a soft puff sound. A golden, thumb-sized elixir jumped out from the inside and quietly floated in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. Good, Zhang Xiaohua was not only happy for himself, but he also let out a big sigh of relief. With this elixir, Zhang Xiaohua could be at ease. Oyan's life could be considered to be saved. Zhang Xiaohua's performance was the next step of pulling the elixir. Without any pressure, Zhang Xiaohua displayed the elixir-pulling hand seal to his heart's content. He delicately controlled the true energy in the hand seal and pulled out the awakening elixir from the elixir. It was unknown whether it was the improvement of Zhang Xiaohua's alchemy technique, the improvement of his true energy control, or the fact that he had prepared enough medicinal herbs. In this furnace of elixir, Zhang Xiaohua pulled out a total of 27 awakening elixirs. An unprecedented 27 awakening elixirs. Not only did it break Zhang Xiaohua's knowledge of 9 awakening elixirs, but it also broke his previous record of 18 awakening elixirs. As the 27 awakening elixirs were pulled out, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the last bit of elixir liquid, and he inserted the last hand seal. Just like before, there was a walala sound. Another 8 or 9 awakening elixirs the size of soybeans were formed at once. This was the byproduct of refining the awakening elixir. It seemed to be 70% similar to the awakening elixir on Lingxiang Peak. These 27 awakening elixirs were divided into 9 jade bottles, and 9 awakening elixirs were also put into 3 jade bottles. Zhang Xiaohua was not in a hurry to extinguish the earth fire. He still let the earth fire warm the elixir furnace. Zhang Xiaohua was a little confused. Although it was his first time refining the awakening elixir, the amount of medicinal herbs he put in was roughly the same as when he refined the bone solidifying elixir, blood replenishing elixir, and so on. In the past, he could only refine 18 awakening elixirs. Now he could produce 9 more awakening elixirs. In other words, his alchemy level had improved. He had improved his proficiency in controlling the elixir furnace, his control of the hand seal, and his control of true energy. Then, with the improvement of his cultivation, would he be able to pull out more awakening elixirs with the same medicinal herbs? 36, 45, or 56, 63, 72, or even 81? When he thought about how he could refine 81 awakening elixirs with the same set of medicinal herbs, other people could only refine 9 awakening elixirs. Zhang Xiaohua's saliva was about to flow out. Not to mention that these awakening elixirs were his own, and could be sold for a lot of money. Even if he helped others refine awakening elixirs, wouldn't he also lose 80% of the awakening elixirs? Chapter 796. After finishing his daydream, Zhang Xiaohua licked his dry lips, formed an incantation gesture, and left the alchemy room. Looking at the sun that was slightly to the west, Zhang Xiaohua used the wind-riding technique and flew to the back of Shixin Peak. When he was close to Huanxi Manor, he twisted his body and used Earth Escape to enter the mountain. In Oyan's room, Qiu Tong was the only one who was anxiously pacing around. She paced from one end of the room to the other and back again. In the beginning, she would occasionally look at the door, but as time passed, she couldn't be bothered to look anymore. Her gaze landed on Oyan, who was lying on the bed with a grayish-black face. At this moment, Oyan had become even skinnier. After not seeing her for a few days, her entire face was like a piece of skin. Her unmoving hands that were placed in front of her chest were as thin as chicken claws. She no longer had the charm she had before. Perhaps the best description of Oyan was her fair skin and white bones. When Qiu Tong saw Oyan's appearance, her heart ached so much that she started crying. However, her tears hung on her face as she walked around the room unconsciously. Elder Yu was also listlessly sitting on a chair in the outer room. His eyes were also glancing at the door, and from time to time, a ruthless glint flashed across his eyes. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of Elder Yu. Elder Yu ignored it and continued to stare blankly. Elder Yu? Why are you? When the shadow spoke, Elder Yu finally regained his senses. Wasn't this the person he had been waiting for several days, Zhang Xiaohua? Elder Yu stomped his feet and took a few steps towards the door. He wanted to grab Zhang Xiaohua's neck. How could Zhang Xiaohua allow him to grab her? She raised her hand and easily grabbed Elder Yu's wrist. She asked in confusion, Elder Yu, are you sleepwalking? Zhang Xiaohua. When Qiu Tong heard the commotion outside, she realized that her savior had arrived. She quickly ran out and shouted, Why are you only here now? Where have you been for the past few days? Zhang Xiaohua looked at the surprised and flustered Qiu Tong and said with a smile, Big sister Qiu Tong, I went to find the antidote for the young miss. Bah! Elder Yu, whose hand was being held by Zhang Xiaohua, couldn't break free no matter how many times he tried. His embarrassment turned into anger as he spat on the ground. Previously, he came to see young miss every day, but in the last few days he probably doesn't dare to show his face anymore. Zhang Xiaohua frowned. He had been thinking about refining the spirit awakening pill for the past few days. He really felt that it was useless to come and see Oyan every day. It was better to concentrate on guarding the pill furnace. Now that he thought about it, his actions might make people misunderstand and think that he was running away. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua loosened her grip and said apologetically, So that's what Elder Yu thinks. Then I've really wronged this little one. This little one has been racking her brains these past few days to obtain the medicinal pill that can save Mississippi. Really? Elder Yu wasn't the only one who was surprised. Qiu Tong couldn't wait any longer and shouted, Zhang Xiaohua, you're really good. Quick! Where's the medicinal pill? Take it out quickly. Young miss, she's about to die. Ah, so fast. Zhang Xiaohua was also shocked and quickly ran inside. Elder Yu shouted angrily behind him. Now you know why this old man is angry. Young miss is already in this state, and you still haven't shown your face. If you still don't show your face today, this old man will beat you up the next time I see you. Zhang Xiaohua turned a deaf ear to this kind of threat. When he ran to Oyan's bedside and released his divine sense, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Oyan's appearance was very scary, but her life force was still fading at the same speed. According to Zhang Xiaohua's estimation, she would only have a problem after 2 more days. At this time, Qiu Tong and Elder Yu also walked over. When they saw Zhang Xiaohua standing up and not doing anything, Qiu Tong anxiously said, Zhang Xiaohua, is young miss dying? Why aren't you giving young miss the medicine? Elder Yu also said anxiously. And wait a moment. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and took out a jade bottle. He poured out a spirit awakening pill and was about to feed it to Oyan when he heard Elder Yu shout, Kid, what kind of medicinal pill is this? Why does it smell so strange? It doesn't smell like medicine at all. That's right, Xiaohua. Lingering Fragrance Peak's Spirit Awakening pill has a medicinal fragrance. Even the color is light yellow. Your medicinal pill is much bigger than theirs, the color is different, and it doesn't smell like medicine? Is this still a medicinal pill? Faced with the two's doubts, Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had already explained this to Zhang Xiaohu and Chang'e. He couldn't possibly explain it to everyone, right? It was as if he was begging them to take the medicinal pill. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and said with a smile, "This is indeed a genuine spirit awakening pill. Big sister Chiao Tong, don't worry. No matter what, I won't harm young Mississippi. Actually, even if I have some bad intentions, do you think I need to use it?" Chiao Tong shook her head. "Xiaohua, I'm not saying that you have any bad intentions. I just want to ask if this is a real medicinal pill." She then looked at Elder Yu and said hesitantly, "We've already waited so long for Xiaohua. The divine doctor on Lingering Fragrance Peak said that young Miss can't be saved. Why don't we let Xiaohua give it a try?" In fact, the two of them were waiting for Zhang Xiaohua's medicinal pill. However, when they saw Zhang Xiaohua take out a medicinal pill that wasn't a medicinal pill, they naturally had some doubts. Elder Yu also retracted his anger and looked at Zhang Xiaohua. "This brat has worked hard for the past few days, and I can't forget him. If we don't let young Miss use it, we'll be letting him down. I think we should follow our previous arrangement and let young Miss use it." But what if young Miss fails immediately after taking it? Chiao Tong began to speculate. What's the difference between young Miss's current condition and tomorrow's condition? Elder Yu analyzed and said, "It's better to take it quickly. We'll know whether it works or not soon." "All right, Xiaohua, I believe you. You better not disappoint us." Chiao Tong gritted her teeth and finally agreed. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the two of them and nodded. She used her hand to open Oyan's mouth and placed the golden spirit awakening pill into her mouth. The moment the spirit awakening pill entered Oyan's mouth, it immediately turned into a fragrance that flowed down her throat and into her body. The moment it melted, a strange fragrance assailed her nostrils. "Io, it's indeed a good medicinal pill." Elder Yu was the first to admit his mistake. He said, "Chiao Tong, it seems like we've wronged Zhang Xiaohua." Chiao Tong ignored him. Her eyes were fixed on Oyan, observing her movements. When Zhang Xiaohua saw that the spirit awakening pill was placed into Oyan's mouth, she didn't hesitate. She circulated her true energy and randomly tapped on Oyan's head, unlocking the previously sealed acupoints. In her divine sense, Oyan's life force was flowing faster as her acupoints were unlocked. However, this speed only increased for an instant before it gradually slowed down. Slowly, it came to a stop. "Good," Zhang Xiaohua exclaimed in his heart. Then he felt relieved. This awakening pill is indeed an immortal Dao pill. It really lives up to its reputation. It actually cured Oyan's illness. Chiao Tong and Elder Yu didn't know about this and continued to stare at Oyan. A moment later, they heard Oyan moan. Her eyelashes fluttered and she slowly opened her eyes. Young Miss, Chiao Tong was so happy that she cried. She practically threw herself into Oyan's embrace and held her hands tightly. "Young Miss, you're awake. How do you feel now?" Elder Yu was the first to show his concern for Oyan's health. Oyan looked at the two of them, and then looked at Zhang Xiaohua. She seemed to be recalling what happened before she fainted. After a moment she said, "And I'm all right. I just feel a little weak, but other than that, I'm no different from before." Then, she nodded at Zhang Xiaohua. "Xiaohua, you saved my life again." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she quickly waved her hands and said, "You're too kind. That's because young Miss is too beautiful. King Yama couldn't bear to part with you and sent you back. It has nothing to do with me." Oyan forced a laugh and said, "After not seeing you for a few years, you've become much more talkative. You're no longer the rash country bumpkin from before." Zhang Xiaohua scratched her head and said, "Everyone has to improve, right? Don't you think so? If this little one was still the country bumpkin from before, I'm afraid that today." Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything about the future. Everyone knew about it. Oyan didn't continue. She looked at Chiao Tong and Elder Yu and said, "Elder Yu, Chiao Tong, it's been hard on the two of you. I'm really sorry." Chiao Tong and Elder Yu quickly said, "Young Miss, what are you talking about? It's better if you don't say anything first. You can say whatever you want after your body recovers." Oyen smiled and didn't say anything else. At this time, Chiu Tong called out again. Young miss, you haven't eaten for many days. I'm sure you're hungry. I've made some white fungus porridge for you. Eat some first. Oyen smiled. I haven't eaten for many days, but I don't feel hungry. Now that you mention it, I'm a little craving. Bring it over and I'll drink some first. This question was directed at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua also nodded. Young miss, it's fine to eat as long as you don't stuff yourself. All right, you two wait here. I'll go get it. Elder Yu was also happy. He volunteered to go, not caring that he only had one arm. Chiu Tong saw that Elder Yu was happy and didn't fight with him. She only smiled at the resurrected Oyen. Zhang Xiaohua, who was beside her, suddenly remembered something. She took out the letter and box from her bosom and handed it to Oyen, saying, Miss, this is what you taught me before you fell asleep. Now that you've woken up, you should keep it for yourself. Oyen glanced at the box and shook her head. These things are a source of trouble if I keep them. Sooner or later, the fragrant cult will take them away. No one would have thought that they'd been with you for many years. I'll leave them to you in the future. Unless I ask you for them personally, you can just pretend they don't exist. After thinking for a moment, she said, If something happens to me, I'll leave them to you. How can I do that? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Chapter 797. When Zhang Xiaohua heard that Oyen wanted to hand over the map and the box to him for safekeeping, and that if anything were to happen to Oyen he would have to deal with it, and he immediately shook his head like a rattledrum, objecting with all his might. What a joke! What were these two items? They were the root of the Misty School's destruction. Peng, Zhang Chernyue, and the other Misty School disciples would rather lose their lives than hand them over to the incense cult. These items were simply too heavy. Zhang Xiaohua might be able to keep them, but to let him deal with them alone, he really didn't dare. Zhang Xiaohua might be able to casually take away the precious Nigong secret manuals from other people's library, and take away the immortal Dao artifacts that others didn't recognize, but this was something that concerned the survival of the Misty School. He didn't dare to casually interfere. After all, he had a special relationship with the Misty School. Oyen wasn't surprised by Zhang Xiaohua's refusal. It would be unreasonable if Zhang Xiaohua accepted such an important item without any explanation. Thus she smiled and said, Zhang Xiaohua, according to the ancient books, one should repay the kindness of a drop of water with a gushing spring. There's also the case of a hero saving a beauty. You see, Sister O is much older than you and isn't a beauty, so there's no need for that. Zhang Xiaohua only smiled at Oyen's teasing and didn't blush at all. He only treated Oyen as his sister, and didn't have any other thoughts. Seeing Oyen in such a mood, he only felt happy and wanted to accompany her to talk more. Chiu Tong was also happy. Although there were still some tears on her face, she didn't wipe them away and only looked at them with a smile. Oyen continued. Last time you saved me, I sent your second brother to the Misty School. Sai, although he was extremely lucky and became a direct disciple, he encountered the great changes in the Misty School. I'm sure his situation in the Misty Hall is worrying. And this time? Zhang Xiaohua, tell me, how can I repay you? Zhang Xiaohua looked at Oyen and said gently, Sister O, why do you need to repay me? Don't forget, back then in Pingyang City, second brother and I were like rootless duckweeds, drifting about without knowing where to go. Fortunately, second brother stayed in the Lotus Escort Agency, but what about me? Wasn't she still brought back to Huanxi Manor by big sister Chiu Tong? In Huanxi Manor, if Sister O didn't favor me and let me study, learn herbs, and practice martial arts with Captain He, how could I be where I am today? Oyen's face was a little ashamed. She waved her little hands with difficulty and said, Those are not worth mentioning. To be honest, back then, I saw that you were honest and didn't have Tian Zhongxi and the others who were slippery, so I said a few more words. It really can't be compared with you saving my life. Zhang Xiaohua listened and said seriously, Sister O, you are wrong. To you it was just a few words and a matter of lifting a hand, but to me it was a great favor. What you said and did left a deep impression in my heart. Although you didn't care that day, I have long treated you as an elder sister. Hee hee, Sister O, in this way, I am also climbing up the social ladder. Oyen smiled. This was the truth. What was her identity at that time? How could she treat Zhang Xiaohua as her younger brother? Zhang Xiaohua added. Besides, let's look at the situation now. Big Sister O, you think that this is a life-saving grace for you, but what about me? It's just a small matter. Tell me, what else do I expect from you? At this moment, Qiu Tong suddenly burst out laughing. Yen and Zhang Xiaohua were stunned and asked, "What's so funny?" Qiu Tong said in all seriousness, "Of course it's hilarious. Look at the two of you, one pushing the other, and the other pushing back. I find it really amusing that you're trying to be the benefactor of others." Yen had always treated Qiu Tong as her younger sister, so she didn't blame her. She smiled and said, "Then tell me, what did we do wrong?" Qiu Tong looked at the two of them and said, "The ancients said that good people will be rewarded. Young Miss was a good person once and took in Zhang Xiaohua. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to repay the kindness and saved young Miss in the rainy night. Zhang Xiaohua was also a good person once. In the end, young Miss sent her second brother to Misty School and was also a good person once. But now, Zhang Xiaohua remembers young Miss good in her heart. When young Miss was in danger, she saved young Mississippi. Isn't this the good karma that young Miss deserves? There seems to be a saying. What drink, what peck?" Yen smiled and said, "Every drink and peck is predestined by karma." Qiu Tong clapped and said with a smile, "That's right. Young Miss is very knowledgeable." Zhang Xiaohua also smiled and said, "Sister O, we are all in the situation and can't see it as clearly as Sister Qiu Tong. Huanqi Villa is like my home, and you are my older sister. How can I not help when you are in danger? It's better not to mention saving your life in the future." Yen smiled very brightly and shook her head slightly. It really felt like she was looking at her family dotingly. She said, "Ai Xiaohua, we are going off topic again. Since you treat me as your older sister, I won't be polite and treat you as my younger brother. Look, do you think these things in your hands are suitable for me, Qiu Tong, or elder you? Since I treat you as my younger brother, this difficult task will naturally be shouldered by you." Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. After talking for a long time and making excuses for a long time, he still fell into Yan's trap. However, Yan was right. In this world, where could it be safer than his own purse? All right. Zhang Xiaohua was no longer pretentious. He put the items back into his arms and said, "Since Big Sister O has given the order, I'll keep these items with me for now. However, Big Sister O is destined to live a long life, so it's not up to me to deal with these items." Seeing Zhang Xiaohua put away the two things, Yen let out a long breath. She was also pitiful. She was under house arrest in Huanqi Villa by the fragrant cult, and could only rely on two people. However, these two people didn't have the ability to protect themselves. If she didn't rely on Zhang Xiaohua now, who could she rely on? Yang Ruping in front of Shixin Peak? Li Jian and Lu Qingyang of Ethereal Heights? At this time, Elder Yu came in with a tray and said with a smile, "This white fungus is just right. Young Miss, quickly try it." Qiu Tong took the bowl of soup. Yen looked at the steaming white fungus soup and said with a smile, "I don't know why, but I haven't eaten for a long time. Now that I see this soup, I feel a little hungry." Hearing this, Qiu Tong carefully scooped a spoonful of soup and sent it to Yan's mouth. She said with a smile, "Isn't this because of Zhang Xiaohua's fasting pill?" She said that it was something obtained from Rejuvenation Valley. As long as you eat one, you won't need to eat or drink for a long time. A fasting pill? This is something good from Rejuvenation Valley. Zhang Xiaohua, your face is not small. You can actually get these things from Valley Master Nia. Oh, I remember, Valley Master Nia seems to have 3 daughters. Could it be that, a confidant, Yen, who had a keen sense of smell, immediately found the source of the problem and looked at Zhang Xiaohua with surprise. What? Zhang Xiaohua felt a headache coming on. Was this still a patient who had just woken up? Thus, she hurriedly looked at the sky and stammered, "Sister O, the sky is a little gloomy. It seems that it's going to rain soon. I still have to dry the clothes in the small courtyard, so I won't stay here to accompany you." After saying that, She cupped her hands and fled in a hurry. Yen tilted her head and looked out of the window. She said curiously, "It's so sunny. Why would there be rain?" Then she came to a realization. Elder Yu quickly stopped him. "I still have things to do." Zhang Xiaohua did not want to stay any longer. She walked out of the room and made a hand seal to escape through the earth. When Elder Yu chased after her, she was already gone. Zhang Xiaohua escaped in a hurry. As she went to the pill room, she muttered in her heart, "Why are all women the same? As long as they talk about these boring things, each of their eyes are brighter than the other. Lingxiang peaks Chen Chen, Shixin peaks Yen. Could it be that this is the common characteristic of women?" While she was thinking, she arrived at the pill room. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was still warm above the earth fire. Zhang Xiaohua went forward and patted it. She smiled and said, "Purple gold furnace, it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, eldest young lady would have died. However, even if you want to save this delicate woman, you still have to save this stinky man. I'll leave the martial arts of the 1,000 people in Misty Mountain Villa to you." As she spoke, she took out the bright yang grass, crimson pearl grass, and other supplementary herbs from her belt. The Yulon Grand Canyon was indeed strange. The bright yang grass that was waiting outside was an almost extinct spiritual herb. However, there was actually a lot of it in the mystic birch forest. Zhang Xiaohu and the others had also picked a lot of it from the east side of the Yulon Grand Canyon. Although it was not as old as the ones that Zhang Xiaohua found in Rejuvenation Valley, it was still enough. Zhang Xiaohua picked enough spiritual herbs and placed them into the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace according to the attributes of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. After resting for a while, she went to the new alchemy room. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace had already been warmed up. Zhang Xiaohua made a few hand seals and found that it was exactly the same as the previous alchemy furnace. Only then did she feel relieved. She took out the iron bone grass, fragrant soul wood, and blackwood fruit from her waist and placed them into the alchemy furnace. At this moment, he had made up his mind. The elixir wasn't too urgent. It was fine as long as he could successfully refine it. He didn't need to refine cauldron after cauldron. He might as well start with 2 cauldrons at the same time. Unfortunately, there was only one earth fire in the alchemy room of Shixin Peak. If it was like Rejuvenation Valley, one alchemy room could have 2 earth fires. However, even the moon was waxing and waning. How many times in the world were perfect? Chapter 798. Zhang Xiaohua placed the 2 alchemy furnaces in place and watched as the spiritual herbs were gradually refined into elixirs. She then left the alchemy room and concealed herself before heading to Zhang Xiaohu's place. Ever since she parted ways with Zhang Xiaohu at the ethereal mountain villa, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to be distracted in order to refine the awakening pill for Yen. She didn't even take a step out of the alchemy room. After not seeing him for a few days, she wondered how Zhang Xiaohu was doing at the ethereal mountain villa. When Zhang Xiaohua arrived at Zhang Xiaohu's small courtyard, he found that the courtyard was empty. There was no one there. It was the same as the last time she came. Could it be that second brother's situation has improved? Could it be that his whereabouts are all in the ethereal mountain villa? Zhang Xiaohua muttered to herself as she headed to the backyard. As expected, He Tianshu was still there. However, he was no longer lying on the bed. Instead, he was lying comfortably on the recliner with his eyes closed as he basked in the sunlight that shone in through the window. "Captain He." Zhang Xiaohua called out softly as she entered the room. "Little Blossom?" When He Tianshu heard this name, he immediately opened his eyes and replied with a smile. That was because Zhang Xiaohua was probably the only person in the Misty School who would call him Captain He. "I haven't been here for a few days. How is Captain He?" Zhang Xiaohua asked with a smile. "Very good." He Tianshu raised his eyebrows and gave a thumbs up. "My dantian and meridians feel warm. It's the same feeling as when I broke through a bottleneck when I was cultivating. My joints feel itchy and numb. Needless to say, it's the feeling of healing. I've been in the alchemy hall for so many years. I know what this feeling means very well." He Tianshu smiled. "I don't know where your second brother got this method from. I really don't know how to thank him. Don't be so courteous with him, Captain He. He's my second brother. You were so good to me back then, so it's only right for him to treat you this way. Hee, even if that's the case, you are you, and your second brother is your second brother. If you were the one who treated me, of course, I wouldn't thank you. But for your second brother, I think, hey, isn't that simple? Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, You're all students of the Misty School. You'll have a lot to do with each other in the future. If my second brother needs Captain He in the future, you can support him more. He Tianshu rolled his eyes and said, He's a direct disciple, so why would he need me? However, if something really happens to him, I will definitely help him even if I have to sacrifice my life. You can rest assured about this. Zhang Xiaohua curled her lips and said, Captain He, why would second brother let you do something that would cost you your life? It wasn't easy for him to save you. As they were talking, there seemed to be some movement in the front yard. Zhang Xiaohua pointed outside, indicating that she should go out and take a look. He Tianshu also nodded. When Zhang Xiaohua hid at the side, she saw that in the front yard, Zhang Xiaohu was talking to two disciples. When he finished, the two disciples nodded and said, Understood, Senior Zhang. We will do it now. When we have the results, we will report to you. Hee, junior brothers, you've worked hard. If this matter is successful, the hall master will definitely reward you. It will be considered as a contribution to our efforts. Zhang Xiaohu patted their shoulders and smiled. It's nothing. It's all senior brother Zhang's idea. We are just running errands. After that, the two of them bowed and left. When the two of them were far away, Zhang Xiaohua came out from the house and said with a smile, Senior brother Zhang, you have people running errands for you now? Xiaohua. When he heard Zhang Xiaohua's voice, Zhang Xiaohu was overjoyed. He immediately asked, How is young lady O? You haven't been here for a few days. Did you go to see young lady O? Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose and said with some sadness, How can I, Xiaoxia, disappoint senior brother Zhang? You are looking down on me too much. Zhang Xiaohu was also happy and said, Young lady O is sect leader O's only relative. It is great that she is safe and sound. We can finally live up to his spirit in heaven. His spirit? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Just a moment ago he called O Yin elder sister O. Now that he heard Zhang Xiaohu call O Peng spirit, he immediately understood. If Zhang Xiaohu called O Peng ancestor, then what about O Yin? Was she ancestor? The two of them were blood-related brothers. They had suddenly opened the seniority gap. What? Did I say something wrong? Zhang Xiaohu asked curiously. Hee, young lady O just called me little brother. Zhang Xiaohua said mysteriously. Ha. Zhang Xiaohu couldn't help but laugh. It's a mess. After laughing, Zhang Xiaohu pulled Zhang Xiaohua's arm and said, Come, let's go inside. I have something to tell you. Zhang Xiaohua, who was pulled into the room by second brother, was puzzled. What is it? Could it be that the matter at Ethereal Mountain Villa didn't go smoothly? No, the matter at Ethereal Mountain Villa went very smoothly. It's just that I did as you said and didn't tell them the purpose of my visit. I only treated the stone cow and Zhou Mufeng before returning to the mountain. What did Hall Master Yang and Vice Hall Master Qian say? I only told them that martial ancestor Li's expression didn't look too good. I felt that when we talked about this matter, I didn't dare to mention it. What else could they say? They only said a few words to comfort me. Oh, that's right, you haven't been here for a few days. The decree from the Lingering Fragrance Peaks leader has arrived. I'm now officially the chief disciple of Ethereal Mountain Villa. However, the identity token of the Misty School is missing. I reckon that the refining hall will have to make another one. Missing. Zhang Xiaohua curled her lips. I'm afraid they don't dare to give it to you. Forget it, no matter what, I have to congratulate second brother. You've finally taken the first step. Zhang Xiaohu beamed with joy. Nonsense. Aren't you congratulating me the same as congratulating you? If it weren't for you, all of this wouldn't have happened. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand. Forget it. In my eyes, all of this is trouble. If you're willing, you can do it. Oh, second brother, is this what you're talking about? Of course not. This is just a happy occasion. I still have 2 things that I need your help with. 2 things? So many? Second brother, you also know that my time is very precious. In just a breath's time. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was going to talk nonsense again, Zhang Xiaohu stared at her and said, "Nonsense. Are you going to help or not?" "Help, help, help." Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, "You're the elder brother. Your words carry more weight than Old Man Purple Herb. Tell me, what do you want me to do?" Zhang Xiaohu was amused. "Old Man Purple Herb is your hallmaster. How can my words be compared to his?" Then he paused for a moment and said, "These 2 things, one in the light and one in the dark." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. "Second brother, you've become the chief disciple. Why are your words so high class? One in the light and one in the dark." Zhang Xiaohu did not find it strange. He explained, "On the surface, I want you to complete the exchange of herbs and elixirs with our ethereal hall as the disciple on duty of the pill-expanding hall. More specifically, I want you to complete this exchange of herbs and elixirs." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned again. "Isn't Du Feng in charge? Why is it your turn now?" "Who knows?" Zhang Xiaohu shrugged and said, "I haven't seen Du Feng these few days. I heard from the hall master that he had a breakthrough in his martial arts. This exchange will be temporarily handled by me." "Isn't that so?" Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized. She had given Du Feng a meridian nourishing pill to save him from qi deviation. Some of the medicinal power was used to repair his meridians, and half of the medicinal power was left in Du Feng's dantian. He must have wanted to refine the medicinal power of this meridian nourishing pill before he thought of cultivating in seclusion. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua said apologetically, "Second brother, speaking of Du Feng, I don't know if what I did was right." Zhang Xiaohu asked curiously, "What did you do to Du Feng? Did you also kacha?" Casually he made a gesture of cutting his neck. "He's a genius disciple of our Misty School. How could he offend you?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Second brother, am I the kind of butcher you said?" Hey, what? Don't you think so?" Zhang Xiaohu gloated. Zhang Xiaohua looked defeated. She told him what had happened a few days ago and senior brother Ding's matter by the way. She asked, "Second brother, do you think it will affect you if I give the meridian nourishing pill to Du Feng?" Zhang Xiaohu laughed and said, "Xiaohua, what kind of person do you think I am? Du Feng and Ding Chao are the elites of my ethereal sect. Their reputation as one of the 3 talents of ethereal sect is not undeserved. There will be many uses for them in the future. By doing this, you have given second brother an excellent helper. I can't even thank you enough, so how can I blame you?" Seeing Zhang Xiaohu being so generous, Zhang Xiaohua also laughed and said, "What 3 beauties of Misty School? I don't see Zhao Jianxiu anywhere." Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu could only say, exception, hee. "Oh, by the way, second brother, how's your internal strength cultivation these days?" Du Feng's cultivation is profound. If he refines the efficacy of the meridian nourishing pill, won't he be 1 level higher than you? Well, I can't help it. It's only been a few days. How can I cultivate to a shocking level? If I tell others about my current achievements, it will also be shocking. That's good. When I have time later, I'll help second brother take the other 2 universal pills. I think now is the right time. Speaking of taking the universal pill, Zhang Xiaohua's mind lit up. She smiled mysteriously and said, "Second brother, I have a good idea. Since Ding Chao is also a good disciple of your Misty School, he is also trustworthy. If I also feed him a meridian nourishing pill, and let his martial arts be similar to Du Feng's, do you think something fun will happen?" Zhang Xiaohu's eyes also lit up. He clapped his hands and said, "That's right. If that's the case, the 2 of them won't think about me. Let the 2 of them fight first. When my internal strength is refined, then, Xiaohua, do you have enough meridian nourishing pills? My second matter is related to this meridian soothing pill." Chapter 799. It's enough, it's enough. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. "There are still a few left, but don't worry, second brother. I'm rushing to refine it for you. There are so many people in ethereal heights. How can it be enough if you don't refine more? That's good. Zhang Xiaohu breathed a sigh of relief. You won't go to ethereal heights again so soon. After all, Zhou Mufeng hasn't seen the effect yet. Zhang Xiaohu shook his head and said, the second thing is not to go to ethereal heights. I want you to help my master, Martial Uncle Liu, and Martial Uncle Shui recover their strength. Huh? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Didn't you say that you want them to recover at the end? So that they can hide from the eyes and ears of Lingxiang Peak. Well, yes, I thought so at first, but last time I saw that there were fewer eyes and ears on my master's side. If we are cautious, there may not be any problem. Moreover, the point is that I see that other people's martial arts have recovered, but my master and martial uncle still can't recover. This is not a good feeling in my heart. Zhang Xiaohua's face also became serious and said, no problem, second brother, I'll listen to you. Master One, Master Liu, and Heroine Shui are our family's saviors. Anything I do for them is not excessive. Tell me, when do you want to go? Zhang Xiaohu thought for a moment and said, when I was looking for you these days, I also thought about it. Next, you will represent the Pill Tower Hall to trade elixirs with our Misty Hall. This matter is very complicated. Moreover, the matter of Misty Heights is imminent. You and I may not have too much free time. Therefore, it is better to take advantage of the present, before the trade starts, to settle this matter. At that time, everyone's attention will be on the herbs and elixirs, and no one will pay attention to them. Well, what second brother said makes sense. Then let's not delay. Shall we start now? Right now. Come with me. Do you still want me to be your assistant? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, the three martial uncles are all discerning people. I think I won't show up. It won't be too late for me to come out after you have sealed their acupoints. Zhang Xiaohu thought for a moment and nodded. All right, then you should hide first. After he finished speaking, he walked out of the small courtyard. Zhang Xiaohua also turned invisible and followed behind him. Inside Wenwenhai's small courtyard, the Jianghu hero who used to have a commanding aura was still carrying a small wooden bucket and a small ladle, carefully and patiently watering the small medicinal field in the courtyard. Zhang Xiaohu walked into the courtyard with light steps. Wenwenhai still did not know. After all, he had lost his inner strength and could only see and hear like an ordinary person. Master, Zhang Xiaohu suppressed the emotions he was feeling and called out. Hearing Zhang Xiaohu's call, Wenwenhai raised his head and smiled. What brings you here today, the chief disciple of the Misty Hall? I heard that you have been very busy these days. Master, no matter how much of a chief disciple I am still your disciple. How can I not come to see you? Well, that's good too. Come and take a look at the medicinal herbs in my medicinal field. I have been planting them for a long time, and it is time to harvest them. Exchanging some pills from the pill expanding hall can also benefit the disciples of the Misty School. This useless person can finally do something for you. Master, Zhang Xiaohu choked up. With such a master and such a disciple in the Misty School, what difficulties in this world could not be overcome? Is it necessary? Xiaohu. Wenwenhai was somewhat impatient. Do you really think that your master is a useless person? No. Zhang Xiaohu quickly waved his hand and said in a low voice, Master, I came here today for something important, not to see your medicinal herbs. Wenwenhai was extremely surprised. He stared at Zhang Xiaohu and said, I have been in this Shixin Peak for more than a few years, but I have never heard you say anything important. Well, if it is about the chief disciple you mentioned a few days ago, I simply don't care about what is happening outside. Zhang Xiaohu operated his qi to his ears and listened carefully to the movements around. After confirming that there was no one else around, he lowered his voice and said, Master, do you still remember the surprise I told you at Martial Uncle Shui's place that day? Surprise? Wenwenhai was stunned and nodded. I remember. Isn't the surprise about my engagement with Chang'e? Zhang Xiaohu blushed and said, Master, what are you talking about? The surprise I mentioned was not for myself, but for Master and martial uncles. That's strange. Xiaohu, now that you mention it, I feel a little strange. You seem to be a little mysterious these days. Oh, I haven't asked you yet. Why does the little medicine boy in the pill-expanding hall look exactly like your younger brother, Zhang Xiaohua, 5 years ago? Don't tell me you have a younger brother. Oh, master is indeed a discerning person, Zhang Xiaohu secretly said in his heart. However, he did not intend to answer. He only smiled and said, Master, you are wrong. I only have one younger brother, Zhang Xiaohua. I don't have a second younger brother. Then he changed the topic. Master, let's go inside and talk about it in detail. As he said that, he pulled Wenhai's sleeve and pulled him into the small room. After a while, a voice that could be suppressed but could not hide the excitement in the room. Xiaohu, you are not lying to me, right? You can really help me recover my martial arts? Zhang Xiaohu jumped out of the room. He looked left and right and used his inner energy to listen carefully. Then he jumped into the room and said in a strange tone, Master, can't you be a little quieter? Hee, Xiaohu. How would you know how excited I am? Wenhai said somewhat embarrassedly. Hee, I thought that with Master's chest as deep as the sea, you would be able to control your emotions. Who knew that you would be as excited as I was when I obtained this method? Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Let's not talk about this. Xiaohu, are you sure you can help me? Oh, and your 2 martial uncles recover their martial arts? When Wenhai was still doubtful. More than that, Zhang Xiaohu said dutifully. I can also control the arms and legs of my 2 martial uncles. Otherwise, how would I dare to tell you about it in front of you? Xiaohu Yuan Wenhai grabbed Zhang Xiaohu's hand, almost choking with sobs. I didn't accept you as my disciple for nothing. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's proud face through his divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua, who was hiding on the ground with her legs crossed, couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Zhang Xiaohu also held Wenhai's hand and said, Master, I should have reported to you long ago, but I didn't dare to confirm whether the method was effective or not. Moreover, the people of Lingxiang Peak were watching over you, so I didn't dare to act recklessly. Now, I only know that it is effective after I tried it on martial uncle He Tianshu. Hearing Zhang Xiaohu's words, Wenhai frowned and said, Xiaohu, this is where you are wrong. Although He Tianshu is not a direct disciple, nor is he your direct martial uncle, he is still an elder. You should tell me about this matter, and let me try it first. If your method is really ineffective, wouldn't you be harming your martial uncle He? Zhang Xiaohu didn't think that Wenhai would blame him. His face turned red, but he complained in his heart. Master, this wasn't my idea. It was all Xiaohua's idea. I really don't have the right to say anything. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's face turn red, Wenhai also felt that his words were a little harsh. He could only say, forget it. In the future, it's best not to do such things that might harm others. I sigh, how is your martial uncle He now? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I heard from martial uncle He that his condition is very good. Although he hasn't recovered his martial arts, there shouldn't be any problems with my method. It's only a matter of time before he recovers his martial arts. So, I want to take advantage of this time to heal Master and martial uncle's injuries first. When Wenhai had already suppressed his excitement, he thought for a while and said, Xiaohu, I don't know what's going on with your method of healing? Zhang Xiaohu scratched his head. Master, don't ask about this. Anyway, it can help you recover your martial arts. When Wenhai pretended to be angry and said, Your wings have hardened. You don't even want to tell me this? Sai, isn't this nonsense? Master, I don't know myself. How can I tell you? Zhang Xiaohu secretly complained in his heart. However, he still braced himself and said, Please forgive me, Master. If more people know about this secret, I'm afraid that there will be a reaction from Lingxiang Peak. When Wenhai muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment, then nodded and said, I know this. What I mean is, Master and martial uncle's matters are trivial, but your martial ancestor Li and martial ancestor Lu's matters are big. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he was happy. This master of ours is really good. Who is chivalrous and righteous. Isn't it, Master? Therefore he moved closer to his ear, and whispered a few words. When Wenhai's eyebrows were raised in joy and he scolded jokingly, You little brat, you actually have this trick up your sleeve. You've done so much behind Master's back. Alright, although you didn't say it, Master also understands your meaning. The three of us supported you that day. In the future, even if your martial arts recovers, we will definitely support you. You can rest assured." When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he was also overjoyed. Of course, he couldn't directly tell Wen Wenhai about his plans. However, when Wenhai had gone through these few years of tempering his temperament, he had long lost the desire to pursue fame and fortune. How could he not understand Zhang Xiaohu's thoughts after hearing this? Although he didn't have any ambition, if his disciple could have impressive achievements as a master, how could he oppose it? Just as Zhang Xiaohua and Chang'e had expected, Wen Wenhai immediately expressed his stance. Hearing Wen Wenhai say this in front of them, Zhang Xiaohua was somewhat apologetic. After all, Wen Wenhai and the other two were only around 30 years old. They were in the prime of their lives, and were in the prime of their lives. As direct disciples, they were more authentic than Zhang Xiaohua. Asking them to give up certain things wasn't something that could be exchanged with an ordinary price. Zhang Xiaohu whispered. Master Wen Wenhai waved his hand. Don't say such pretentious words. Masters and martial uncles' martial arts and future prospects are all given to us by you. Master and martial uncle won't argue with you about anything. Moreover, looking at the current situation, you can only be a hall master at most. Chapter 800. Wen Wenhai was right. A disciple of the Misty School was at most a hall master on Shixin Peak. Zhang Xiaohu had the support of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Even without Wen Wenhai, Li Jian, and Lu Qingyang of Misty Mountain Villa, he would still be able to sit in this position. If he wanted to improve, it was basically impossible without an opportunity or a big change. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohu also smiled bitterly and said, "This disciple only has this idea. No matter whether it is successful or not, I have worked hard. After 100 years, when I see Master O, it can be considered as me being able to answer to him. I have not let down his grace of personally choosing me to enter the Misty School." Good. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohu was so determined, Wen Wenhai also nodded. Seeing that he had said what he needed to say, Zhang Xiaohu said, "Since Master has already agreed, then this matter should not be delayed. I know that there is a small house behind Master's courtyard. It is usually used to store sundries. Let's go there directly." Small house. Wen Wenhai showed a strange expression and said, "Don't you need a quiet room? Don't you need to make some preparations?" Zhang Xiaohu shook his head and said, "No, Master, the time is not too long. After Master recovers his martial arts, don't let the cat out of the bag." Wen Wenhai laughed and scolded, "Don't worry. Do you think Master is still a 10-year-old boy who can't hold back anything?" Then he frowned and said, "But what about your martial uncle Shui and martial uncle Lu's external injuries? It is not easy to hide them." "Yes, this matter will be discussed when we see the two martial uncles later. Otherwise, the external injuries will not be treated first." Zhang Xiaohu did not have a good idea. Let me see if your technique is effective before we talk." After that, Wen Wenhai did not close the door of the small house and took Zhang Xiaohu to the backyard. When they reached the small house in the backyard, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Master, I still have to offend you. Disciple has to seal your acupoints first." Wen Wenhai smiled and said, "Do whatever you want. Your martial arts are already higher than Master's. Do you think Master will be able to dodge your attacks?" When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he took a step forward and pointed his finger at the vital point. Suddenly he heard Wen Wenhai shout, "Stop. Xiaohu, do you have to hit the acupoints for this technique?" Zhang Xiaohu was taken aback. "Yes, Master. We have to order it. Is there a problem?" Wen Wenhai frowned and said, "But when you treat your martial aunt Shui's injuries later, why would she let you do it?" "Io, that's right." Zhang Xiaohu also realized that Xueqing was a woman. He had inexplicably sealed her acupoints. Moreover, his age was about the same as Xueqing's. This was hard to say. Then what should I do? Zhang Xiaohu looked at Wen Wenhai with a bitter face. "How would I know?" Wen Wenhai glared at him. Zhang Xiaohua, who was at his feet, anxiously stomped her feet. "I have never seen a master and disciple like this. They haven't even finished their own matters. and they are already thinking about others. If you want to think about it, then think about it. The key is that others don't know. You don't even know what they are thinking. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohu came to his senses and said, "O master. Disciple should help you and martial Uncle Lu recover your martial arts first. As for martial Aunt Shui, we can talk about it after we see her." Hee, that's true. When Wenhai realized that his concern had caused him to be in a mess. After that, when Wenhai lay on the hay in the hut, Zhang Xiaohu extended his fingers and sealed a few of his major acupoints. Then he carefully called out, "Xiaohua, Xiaohua." After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua yawned and walked in from outside the hut. She stretched and said, "Second brother, are you done wasting time with your master? I slept for a while." Zhang Xiaohu extended his leg and pretended to kick him. He said, "Let's get to work. Don't be lazy." Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes at him and jumped in front of Wenhai. She extended her hand and sealed all of his major acupoints. Then, without any delay, she took out a meridian nourishing pill and placed it in Wenhai's mouth. She held her hand and used her true energy to wrap around the meridian nourishing pill's medicinal power. Then she sent it straight to his dantian. Wenhai couldn't be compared to Du Feng. He was Zhang Xiaohua's benefactor in the early years. Even Oyen and He Tianshu couldn't compare to him. Therefore, after Zhang Xiaohua left the necessary medicinal power at the hole in his dantian, she used the rest of the medicinal power to refine all of his meridians according to his memory. When Wenhai stopped cultivating his inner energy, his shrunken meridians recovered and expanded by more than 30%. Only then did she send the rest of the medicinal power back to his dantian. Although Zhang Xiaohua used all of her strength this time, and was as careful as when she healed He Tianshu, Zhang Xiaohua's control over her true energy was much more precise now. After refining Wenhai's meridians, Zhang Xiaohua's face wasn't as pale as before. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua open her eyes as if nothing had happened, even Zhang Xiaohu felt strange and asked, "Xiaohua, this is it?" Zhang Xiaohua shrugged and said, "Yes, this is it." But Zhang Xiaohu pointed at Zhang Xiaohua's face and said, "Your performance is too relaxed." Hee, Zhang Xiaohua said, "Second brother, you're really funny. Could it be that only you're allowed to improve your martial arts, but I'm not allowed to improve my martial arts?" Haha. Zhang Xiaohu heard and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He said, "Xiaohua, you're really good. It's only been a few days and your martial arts have improved again. You're really more talented than Du Feng. Du Feng." Zhang Xiaohua's mouth twitched. She felt very helpless. "Can't you find someone more powerful?" Zhang Xiaohu looked at Wenhai and asked, "How is my master now?" "Very good. You just need to unseal his acupoints. Repairing his dantian is much easier than repairing his joints." "Okay, then what's next? Do you want to continue in one spurt of energy, or take a break first?" Zhang Xiaohu was somewhat impatient. After checking the zhenqi in her body, Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "Then let's continue in one spurt of energy. Otherwise, it will leave something in your heart." Zhang Xiaohu looked at his younger brother who was slightly taller than him and smiled. He stretched out his hand and stroked his brother's long hair without saying anything. Zhang Xiaohua also looked at her second brother and smiled slightly. She turned around and unsealed Wenhai's acupoints. Then, she used a primordial stone to replenish the zhenqi in her body. After a while, when Wenhai opened his eyes and looked at Zhang Xiaohu who was standing beside him, he asked in astonishment, "Is it done?" Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, "Of course it's done." "So fast?" When Wenhai still asked, "I thought it would take a long time." Then he wanted to circulate his zhenqi. Unfortunately, his dantian was empty. No matter what, he could not circulate his zhenqi. Zhang Xiaohu saw this and said with a smile, "Master, don't be anxious. It will take some time to repair your dantian. You can give it a try after 20 days. If the new zhenqi does not dissipate, your dantian will be repaired by then." Yes, I was a little impatient. Wenhai smiled and said, "My dantian is warm and all the meridians in my body are comfortable. I think your technique is really useful." Then he climbed up from the ground and pulled Zhang Xiaohu's sleeve and said, "Let's go and find your martial Uncle Lu first." Zhang Xiaohu naturally smiled and followed behind him. Lu Yueming's small courtyard was not far away. It was also a deserted area. After the two entered, Zhang Xiaohu stood guard behind the door. After looking for a long time, he did not find any strange people. Only then did he enter the room. Lu Yueming had heard about this from Wenwenhai long ago. His face was full of joy. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu, he was unable to contain his joy and asked, "Is what your master said true? If martial uncle does not believe me, you can find a disciple to send his Junqi into master's meridians and dantian. Once you check, you will know." Zhang Xiaohu respectfully said, "How can I not believe you? I just feel that it is too magical." Lu Yueming rubbed his hands and said, "Also, can my lame leg be cured?" Seeing Zhang Xiaohu nod, Lu Yueming said, "I've already thought about it. Xiaohu, since no one comes to my place and I rarely go out, pretending to be lame shouldn't be difficult. I don't want to drag it out forever." "No problem, martial Uncle Lu. However, treating your leg will be very painful. You must be prepared." Lu Yueming waved his hand. "Who in Jianghu hasn't seen blood before? Why would I be afraid of this?" "Okay then, martial Uncle Lu, there is no time to lose. Let's start now." There was no need to explain things in detail. Lu Yueming and Zhang Xiaohu went to the small room in the backyard. Wenwenhai prepared a cloth belt and a splint. Zhang Xiaohua once again took action. First, she followed the gourd and a ladle. She repaired Lu Yueming's dantian, and also refined his meridians. Only then did she crush the injured part of his leg. After reconnecting it, she took a bone solidifying pill. Lu Yueming only suffered external injuries, which were many times better than He Tianxu's. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua easily finished the treatment. When Wenwenhai saw Zhang Xiaohu put Lu Yueming on a recliner and brought him to the hall, he unconsciously felt relieved. He smiled and said, "Junior brother Lu, how do you feel?" Lu Yueming's voice was a little hoarse. He said, "Your disciple is really cruel. My leg hurts like hell. Even though my acupoints are sealed, I still feel it. How can I say anything else?" "Haha, martial Uncle Lu, you must be magnanimous. Before this, I have already explained clearly. This leg injury will probably take dozens of days to heal. Bah, who do you think your martial uncle is? Do you think I will blame you?" Lu Yueming said with a smile, "It's just that I can't move my leg. I have to find a reliable disciple. I can't let anyone know." "Martial Uncle Lu, don't worry. I have already thought about this." "Hehe, that's good." Lu Yueming nodded. "I see that you're not panting or blushing at all. It seems like treating us is as easy as lifting a finger. Are you going to treat your martial uncle Shui soon? Is that so?" When Wenwenhai heard this, he said with a troubled expression, "Little Tiger's technique requires striking the acupoints, and Shui-qing. After all, it's not suitable, so Little Tiger is in a bit of a dilemma." "Isn't that simple?" Lu Yueming smiled. Chapter 801. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he was overjoyed and said, "Masters Junior Lu, do you have any good ideas? Let Chang'e come over and stay with you. Isn't that enough?" Lu Yueming said casually. This Zhang Xiaohu frowned. This was a good idea. Chang'e was a female disciple and Zhang Xiaohu's junior sister. With her by his side, of course, he would be relieved. However, Zhang Xiaohu had another idea. Since Zhang Xiaohu had already told his master that this secret was only known by Zhang Xiaohu himself, if Chang'e stayed by his side, it meant that Chang'e also knew. Since Chang'e could know, but Wenwenhai couldn't, this was obviously different. How could Wenwenhai not have other ideas? Although Wenwenhai was Zhang Xiaohu's teacher, Zhang Xiaohu didn't want to test his master's trust in him with these unnecessary things. The trust between master and disciple was to be cherished, not to be tested. This test may be out of goodwill, but after a long time and too many times, the trust would inevitably be thin. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Lu Yueming, and Wenwenhai with difficulty. He smiled bitterly and said, "If Chang'e can stay by his side, I can let master and master's junior sister go over. We really have to be careful." Wenwenhai also explained, Xiaohu is now carrying a heavy responsibility. We still have to be careful. That's not good. Lu Yueming frowned fiercely. He didn't know if it was because of the difficulty of the matter, or the pain of his leg injury. He said, little Shui has always been stubborn. If her acupoints are sealed and she stays in the same room with Zhang Xiaohu, she will definitely not agree. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Wenwenhai for help and said, Master, I'll leave this matter to you. Anyway, this is my filial piety to Master's junior sister. If she doesn't want to, I can't do anything. Aren't you forcing a duck onto a perch? Wenwenhai smiled bitterly. However, he was still worried about Xueqing. He said, all right, wait a moment. I'll go and ask. Not long after, when Wenwenhai returned, there was no joy or disappointment on his face. He said calmly, as we expected, junior sister Shui rejected it. There's no room for discussion. However, Xiaohu, I've discussed this with your martial uncle Shui. Can you stay in her inner room instead of the small room in the backyard? Also, can't we close the doors and windows? When Wenwenhai spoke, it was almost as if he was pleading. He did not sound like a master instructing his disciple at all. Zhang Xiaohu didn't care. This was all caused by Zhang Xiaohua. He thought for a moment, and felt that Zhang Xiaohua should be able to accept it. He nodded and said, of course, master. As long as junior sister Shui's acupoints are sealed, it's best if master does it. After that, master and junior sister can stay in the inner room. Then he added, master and martial uncle, you can't peek. Do we have to do that? Wenwenhai and Lu Yueming looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Lu Yueming pointed at his leg. Xiaohu, I think I shouldn't go. This leg has just been reattached. If I move it, won't it be out of shape? Also, if we go together, won't we attract attention? That's right. Wenwenhai was also surprised. Xiaohu, let's wait until it's late at night when no one is paying attention. Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. Wenwenhai was right. However, the problem was that Zhang Xiaohua had to sleep at night. If he slept until dawn, who would treat Xueqing's injuries? Zhang Xiaohu shook his head. Master, although it's daytime, we are in the open. Even if someone sees us, they will think it's normal. If it's nighttime, not only will the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak be active, it will be easy for others to see us. Even if other disciples see us, we won't be able to explain it. What's real is fake, and what's fake is real. Lu Yueming nodded. Xiaohu is right. Let's go now. No one will expect us to do such an important thing. All right. Wenwenhai nodded. He bid farewell to Lu Yueming and went to Xueqing's courtyard. Xueqing was already waiting in the hall. Although she was very afraid of being in the same dark room as Zhang Xiaohu, she also faintly desired to recover her martial arts. Seeing Wenwenhai bring Zhang Xiaohu in, she knew that Zhang Xiaohu agreed with her idea. She was naturally overjoyed. She went up to him and said, Xiaohu, you hid it so well. Now that I think about it, you really did have a hidden meaning in your words that night. Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands. Please forgive me, Martial Aunt Shui. I really didn't have much confidence that day. I dare not disappoint you. All right, let's not talk about it. Martial Aunt has also made things difficult for you. I hope you can think for me. I don't dare. My master has already thought about what Martial Aunt is worried about. If Martial Aunt is at ease, let's start now to avoid any problems. Xueqing smiled and nodded. She entered the room first. Zhang Xiaohu and Wenwenhai walked behind her. When Zhang Xiaohu entered, Wenwenhai took a chair and placed it at the door. He sat with his back facing the room. Zhang Xiaohu did not let him go. He called out, Master, you should come over first. It won't be too late to guard the door after I seal Martial Aunt Shui's acupoints. You little brat. Wenwenhai stood up and scolded him with a smile. He walked to the bed and looked at Xueqing, who was covered in a thin blanket. He said, Junior sister, I'm sorry to offend you. Xueqing looked at him silently and nodded slightly. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohu stretched out his hand and tapped on Xueqing's major acupuncture points through the blanket. Fortunately, Zhang Xiaohu had been diligently cultivating his inner strength for the past few days, and had made some progress in his inner strength. Otherwise, his inner strength wouldn't even be able to penetrate the blanket. Then, without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to call out to her, Zhang Xiaohua leaped up from the ground and placed a few jade talismans around the room to activate the restrictions. She looked at Wenhai, who was standing at the door with his back facing her, and smiled. Second brother, there seems to be something interesting between Hero 1 and Heroine Shui. They have been together for so long. Why haven't they? Zhang Xiaohu scolded. Xiaohua, it's best that we don't talk about the matters of the elders. Zhang Xiaohua giggled. It's fine if we don't talk about it. It's just that Heroine Shui is stubborn and doesn't speak first about many things. Hero 1 seems to be the same. If they don't speak in the end, wouldn't we miss out on a good marriage? Since it's a good marriage, we won't miss it. If we miss it, it won't be a marriage destined by the heavens. Zhang Xiaohu said. You're not the Moon Elder. You should do your own things first. When Zhang Xiaohu mentioned the Moon Elder, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the Moon Elder's temple outside Don't Worry City. The devout woman with her head lowered and her palms together. Xueqing's arm was the same as Lu Yueming's leg. Zhang Xiaohua didn't spend too much effort and just finished the treatment. Then, she looked at the sky outside and said, Second brother, it's getting late and I'm tired. Don't take your universal pill today. When I have time tomorrow, I'll look for you. Okay. When Zhang Xiaohu saw that Zhang Xiaohua's face was a little pale, he couldn't help but feel distressed. You've worked hard today. Xiaohua, you should go back and rest early. There's no need to rush this pill. You can take it whenever you want. Okay, then I'll go, second brother. After saying that, Zhang Xiaohua put away the jade talisman and made a hand seal to escape. Seeing that there were no flaws around, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, Master, turn around. I'm done. So fast. When Wenhai asked in surprise again, then stood up from the chair and walked in. Looking at Xueqinglu's arm outside the quilt and the neatly bandaged cloth, he couldn't help but praise. Xiaohu, your treatment of external injuries is first class. Why didn't I notice it before? I'm ashamed, master. It was the little medicine boy from the Pill Tower Hall who taught me in the Yulon Grand Canyon. Zhang Xiaohu also spoke without thinking. That day the little medicine boy was seriously injured and couldn't move at will. We just happened to run into senior martial sister Xia, who was seriously injured. Under the little medicine boy's guidance, I was barely able to bandage senior martial sister Xia's entire body. No wonder I've never seen you do this. When Wenhai suddenly realized. Quick, why aren't you unsealing your martial aunt Shue's acupoints? If too much time passes, she might flip out. I'll follow master's orders. Zhang Xiaohu said in a deadpan manner, then unsealed Xueqing's acupoints. Ouch. Xueqing didn't knit her brows the moment her acupoints were unsealed. She cried out in a low voice because of the pain in her arm. When Wenhai hurried forward. Junior martial sister. Does your arm hurt a lot? Xueqing nodded slightly. Yes, a little. Then she turned to Zhang Xiaohu and said, Little Hu, help me up first. Zhang Xiaohu didn't seem to hear it. He patted his head and said, Oh master, I forgot. I have an appointment with Chang'e today. I still have some matters to consult her about in the hall. Moreover, I'm tired today. I'll leave this to master. I'll take my leave first. After saying that, he didn't wait for Wenhai to say anything. He stood up and said to Xueqing, Martial Aunt Shui, your arm has been fixed. Don't act rashly for the time being. Disciple will take his leave. Then he winked at Wenhai and walked out in large strides. How was he tired in the slightest? Wenhai had already praised him in his heart. Good disciple. Master's daily teachings are not in vain. At the crucial moment, he can really take the lead. But he complained, This brat, your martial aunt Shui already called you, but you didn't hear her. Is your junior martial sister that good? You didn't even take good care of your martial aunt before running away? When he saw Xueqing's sparkling eyes looking at him, he couldn't help but panic. He added, See if I'll teach you a lesson when we get back. Can you bear to? Xueqing stared at Wenhai's flickering eyes. Your precious disciple has already recovered your martial arts. He's still so tactful. Can you bear to punish him? Wenhai giggled. Of course there's a reward for meritorious deeds. Of course there's a punishment for wrongdoings. Oh, junior martial sister, Little Hu has already left. Do you need senior martial brother to help you up? Xueqing looked at Wenwenhai and said unhappily. Okay, then I'll reward you to help me up. Wenwenhai was overjoyed. Chapter 802. In just one afternoon, Zhang Xiaohua had healed Wenwenhai, Lu Yueming and Xueqing's injuries. Although he had made progress in comprehending the heavenly Tao and was able to control his true qi, there was not much true qi left in the meridians of the three of them. After escaping from Xueqing's courtyard, Zhang Xiaohua saw that it was not enough to return to the alchemy room at the top of Shixin Peak. After pondering for a while, he went straight to the small courtyard of Pill Expanding Hall. That was Zhang Xiaohua's foundation at Shixin Peak. It was inappropriate for him to not return for a long time. According to Zhang Xiaohu, the transaction would be carried out very soon. It was better to appear in the small courtyard more often. When Zhang Xiaohua reached the vicinity of the small courtyard and came out from underground, he heard a noise. Zhang Xiaohua looked up and saw a girl in pink standing at the entrance of the small courtyard. She lifted her leg and kicked the courtyard door with all her strength. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised and thought, didn't you say that this small courtyard is the territory of Pill Expanding Hall, and the disciples of Misty Hall are not allowed to come here without my permission? Who is this female disciple? She is so bold. Just as he was thinking, he heard the female disciple shouting, Ren Xiaoyao, why are you hiding like a turtle? If you have the guts, come out quickly. Since you dare to say such words, you should have the consciousness to admit it. I have been shouting at the door for 2 days. How dare you show your face? Ouch. Listening to the female disciple's voice, there was a hint of charm in her high-pitched voice. Wasn't she Xiao Tiantian whom he had met in Zhang Xiaohu's courtyard earlier? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. He didn't seem to have offended this junior sister Xiao. That day, this junior sister Xiao tried to get close to him and wanted the whitening elixir. Although he had an idea and gave the credit to Zhang Xiaohu, but he didn't have such a deep hatred with Xiao Tiantian. He actually let her block his courtyard door and look for him for 2 days. Seeing Xiao Tiantian shouting excitedly, Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and escaped into the courtyard. Just as he was about to open the door, he heard Xiao Tiantian say angrily, Ren Xiaoyao, I know you're inside. Fine, since you don't want to see me, then I'll come again tomorrow. I want to see if you can hide from me for the first time. But how can you hide for the 15th time? Zhang Xiaohua smiled. He didn't want to open the door today. She would come again tomorrow. If he didn't open the door tomorrow, she would come again tomorrow. She would come again the day after tomorrow. She wouldn't be like a sticky fly to get rid of her. It was better to open the door. If there were any grudges, it would be better to get rid of them as soon as possible. Thus, a chant could be heard from the small courtyard. Who will be the first to wake up from a dream? I will know in my life. The door to the small courtyard of the Dan Hall opened with a bang, along with the singing. Outside the small courtyard, Xiao Tiantian turned around. Just as he took 2 steps, he heard it and turned around. It was Zhang Xiaohua's thin and long figure standing at the door, stretching and yawning. You, Xiao Tiantian ran to the door. Ren Xiaoyao, did you sleep like a log? I've been calling you for 2 days. Why did you only open the door now? I'm sorry. It's really hard to work. It's rare for me to have the time to sleep in. Who would have thought that there would be someone noisy here? Yu Xiao Tiantian was a little angry and scolded. Ren Xiaoyao, you. What did you say a few days ago? Let all the disciples of the Shixin Peak know about it. You have to be responsible for your words. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, Junior sister Xiao, you have to be responsible for your words. What did I say? How come I didn't know about it at all? You. Didn't you say, you and I, flirting, glancing, long, heart, telepathy? Although Xiao Tiantian was generous and had a feeling of going all out, after all, she was facing a young man. She couldn't help but blush. As soon as Xiao Tiantian said this, Zhang Xiaohua immediately knew where the problem was. Wasn't it because of the guy called Song Jiong who stopped him halfway a few nights ago, and he spoke without thinking? In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua also understood why the disciples of the Misty Hall looked at her strangely, and even pointed at her. Zhang Xiaohua, who understood everything, smiled bitterly in her heart. She scratched her head and said, "Junior sister Xiao, actually, you should also understand what is going on. That night, senior brother Song stopped me and wanted to help you vent your anger. I was just angry at him. You can't take it seriously." Bah, Xiao Tian spat and said, how can I not take it seriously? And I naturally know the origin of this matter. I cannot take it seriously, but the problem is that even if I don't take it seriously, my senior sister and junior sister will take it seriously. How can you wash my tainted innocence? The word wash was very clear. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged and said helplessly, this matter was also said by senior brother Song. If you want to find someone, you have to find him. What's the use of looking for me? Do you want me to stand at the top of the Shirxin Peak and shout to the disciples of the Misty Hall? Brothers and sisters who have been deceived, junior sister Xiao and I have a pure relationship. It is absolutely different from what you think. Who told you to shout like that? If you do this, where am I going to put my face? Moreover, aren't you? The more you smear, the worse it gets? Xiao Tian stomped her foot and said coquettishly. Then what do you want me to do? So that you can calm down? Zhang Xiaohua asked. Why don't I go and grab that senior brother Song again, kick him twice, and hang him upside down on the tree to take the big top? Poochie, Xiao Tian laughed out loud. Senior brother Song has been tormented by you. The injury on his hand has not healed yet, and he was scared by you. If you do this again, will he still be alive? This won't do, that won't do. Junior sister Xiao, what do you want me to do? Zhang Xiaohua could only ask. This junior sister Xiao lowered her head and said, there are 2 paths for you to walk. 2 paths? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised and asked. You're actually treating me leniently, giving me 2 paths. Please instruct me, junior sister Xiao. Xiao Tiantian's head was even lower as she muttered. First you have to be responsible for what you said. You're so bad. Do you still want me to continue? Xiao Tian stomped her feet and twisted her waist, showing the attitude of a little girl. Although Zhang Xiaohua's heart was slightly moved, her face did not change in the slightest. She smiled and said, Junior sister Xiao, please tell me about the second path. Hearing this, Xiao Tian was obviously disappointed. She glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and said with a cold tone, the second path is also very simple. Since senior brother Run has damaged my reputation, then you have to compensate me. Otherwise, I don't mind reporting you to Hall Master Yang, saying that your conduct is improper, and that you casually take liberties with the female disciples in the hall. Faint. Zhang Xiaohua was immediately defeated. She had only casually said a few words a few days ago, but now it had been raised to the level of taking liberties with female disciples. This was really bullying. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was indignant, but her mouth was bitter. Although this matter was exaggerated by Xiao Tian, the root of the matter was still her fault. She really should not have spoken blindly. Thus Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Junior sister Xiao, although the 2 of us did not fall in love at first sight, Xiao Tian was slightly angry. Who fell in love with you at first sight? Cough cough, Zhang Xiaohua also knew that her words were inappropriate. But it's also very familiar. This is just a misunderstanding. Why do you have to bring it to the hall master? Then he rolled his eyes and said, Junior sister Xiao, if you feel wronged, senior brother can take out some blood replenishing pills as compensation to make up for junior sister's hurt pure heart. You Xiao Tian angrily said, Ren Xiaoyao, you underestimate the disciples of our Misty Hall too much. This blood replenishing pill is not commonly seen in the Misty Hall, but in your pill hall, it's a common item. You have the nerve to take it out. Then she added another sentence. If it's the Yuhuandan pill, this lady can also consider it. Faint, Zhang Xiaohua felt a headache. He had already given his Yuhuandan pill to Zhang Xiaohu. How could he have any extra? Of course, he couldn't give away the Meridian's nourishing pill and bone solidifying pill. The other pills, such as the blood-replenishing pill, were much more valuable than the blood-replenishing pill of the incense cult. He wanted to take it out, but who knew that Xiao Tiantian didn't even pay attention to it? At this time, the belated Zhang Xiaohua thought of Xiao Tiantian's words about washing his reputation, and unconsciously slapped his forehead. Since junior sister Xiao has said so, then senior brother can only take out his most precious whitening pill elixir. Sigh, it's a pity that this pill elixir was given to me by senior brother Zhang, and I haven't used it yet. Only one bottle. Xiao Tiantian didn't hold back and asked directly. Of course, I have no relationship with Xiao Xiaozhang. How could he give me more? Besides, if I had one more bottle that day, how could I make things difficult for you and junior sister E? Let's exchange one bottle per person. Xiao Tiantian rolled her eyes. No. How can one bottle make up for the damage to my reputation? Without 2 bottles, I won't agree. 2 bottles? Zhang Xiaohua also snorted and turned to close the door. I only have 1 bottle here. Do you want it or not? If you're happy, then report it to Hall Master Yang. At most, we'll go our separate ways. I want to see who Hall Master Yang will side with. Yu Xiao Tiantian was deflated and shouted. Ren Xiaoyaoyu. Wait a minute. Do you really only have 1 bottle? Isn't this nonsense? Senior brother Zhang's pills are only for removing bumps. There's nothing on my face. I'm just a pretty boy. I don't need those. How could he give more? All right, I'll let you off this time. Xiao Tiantian had a magnanimous look and stretched out her white hand. Quickly give it to me. I won't pursue this matter anymore. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she reached into her bosom and took out a jade bottle. She handed it over and smiled. Please accept it, junior sister Xiao. Xiao Tiantian proudly took the jade bottle and turned to leave. Looking at Xiao Tiantian's back, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but smile bitterly. She had always taken advantage of others, but today she actually took advantage of her. If word got out, wouldn't the men of the martial arts world laugh at her? Sigh, who asked her to be so talkative and say a few more boring words. Thinking about this, Zhang Xiaohua turned around and closed the courtyard door. However, the moment she closed the courtyard door, Zhang Xiaohua was suddenly stunned. Chapter 803. While Zhang Xiaohua was regretting that he had said too much, he felt something in his heart. However, it was only a vague feeling, and it was not clear. When he closed the door, a sentence appeared in his mind like lightning. This was what Qiu Tong had said in the morning. Every drink and every peck is the way of karma. Yes, it was the way of karma. Zhang Xiaohua was like a lost person who suddenly saw a glimmer of light in the darkness. He immediately gained some understanding of the way of karma. A few days ago, Zhang Xiaohua had encountered Song Jiong causing trouble. If it was just to teach him a lesson and not talk too much, then the past would have been over. However, in order to teach Song Jiong a lesson, Zhang Xiaohua spoke a few more words and said a lot of things that should not have been said. These words involved Xiao Tiantian, which was the cause. When Xiao Tiantian heard these words, she angrily came to seek justice. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to lower his head and apologize. He gave away the whitening elixir to calm the waves. This was the effect. Oyen saved Zhang Xiaohua and took Zhang Xiaohua into Huanxi Mountain Villa. She instructed He Tianshu to teach Zhang Xiaohua martial arts, and lent Zhang Xiaohua a book on the cultivation of herbs. This was the cause. Zhang Xiaohua followed Oyen to the south, and encountered an assassination attempt on a rainy night. Zhang Xiaohu stepped forward bravely and saved Oyen. This was the effect. Zhang Xiaohua saved Oyen, and Oyen introduced Zhang Xiaohu to the Misty School. Zhang Xiaohua also received the gratitude of sect leader O and obtained the Worry-Free Sutra from the Misty School's library. This was the cause. Zhang Xiaohua received endless benefits because of this Worry-Free Sutra, and entered the ranks of Qi practitioners on the path of immortality. She also learned the art of alchemy and refined the awakening elixir, which saved Oyen again. This was the effect. Looking a little further, back then when Wen Hai, Xueqing, and Lu Yueming all saved Zhang Xiaohua's family. This was the cause. Zhang Xiaohu entered the Misty School and became a disciple of Wen Hai. Zhang Xiaohua also entered the path of immortality and refined elixirs of the path of immortality such as the meridian nourishing elixir and the bone solidifying elixir. These elixirs could save the three of them and restore their damaged internal energy. This was the effect. Zhang Xiaohua had rescued Nie Qingyu on the way back to Pingyang City. He was a hero and escorted her safely to Rejuvenation Valley for thousands of miles. This was the cause. With the help of Valley Master Nie of Rejuvenation Valley, Zhang Xiaohua came to the fragrance cult and found his second brother, Zhang Xiaohu. This was the effect. In order to save Li Yinfeng's family of three, Zhang Xiaohua broke into Shizue Mountain alone. This was the cause. As a result, he obtained the elixir furnace from the secret room of the bandits. Because he was chased and captured by Qin Shiriyue, he went out to sea with him and landed on a deserted island overseas. There, he learned the talismans and formations of the path of immortality, and obtained many other things. During the secluded orchid evening refinement, if Zhang Xiaohua did not sacrifice himself to draw the yellow wind away in order to save the disciples of the pill-expanding hall, how could he have obtained the delusion breaker eye? How could he have met Zhang Xiaohu who was trapped by the blood wolves? What about such a fruitful cause? Well, if Zhang Xiaolong did not stand up for the cause in Lu Town, how could there be the effect of Lu Qian pledging herself to him? At the moment when Zhang Xiaohua turned around to close the door, Zhang Xiaohua sighed with emotion. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. He thought about all the things that had happened in the past few years and thought about the causes and effects clearly. The causes and effects of all the things were obvious and complicated. There was even a faint predetermined. If he could not figure it out, it would be even more chaotic. Then, in the starry sky of the Tao of Heaven, there was another burst of thunder and lightning. In addition to the embryonic form of the Tao of Life and Death that Zhang Xiaohua had comprehended before, the outline of the Tao of Karma that Zhang Xiaohua had just comprehended today was also faintly visible. In the Tao of Heaven, it was unknown how much of the Tao of Heaven and Earth was contained. It was also unknown how much could be comprehended, and how much could not be comprehended. The Tao of Life and Death distinguished life and death, separated yin and yang, and built the cycle of life and death. The Tao of Karma deduced the past, the present, and the future, and connected the origin, beginning and end of everything in the world. Everything in the world could not escape from life and death, and could not escape from the Tao of Karma. The mysteries contained in these two Tao of Heaven were far from what Zhang Xiaohua, a Qi practitioner in the middle stage of the Qi refining stage, could understand. However, Zhang Xiaohua was lucky enough to feel a trace of the operating outline in this martial world where the Tao of Immortals had been annihilated for 10,000 years. It had to be said that cultivation was the cultivation of one's mind and body. Even an ordinary life in the martial world contained the magical power of the Tao of Immortals. The operation of the Tao of Heaven and Earth was not something that could be easily comprehended by those who only knew how to kill and take revenge. It was also not something that could be comprehended by those who were isolated from the mortal world and only focused on personal cultivation. It could only be comprehended by those who were magnanimous, chivalrous, and willing to sacrifice themselves for others. Zhang Xiaohua might be a little stingy, a little narrow-minded, and a little immature, but he happened to have such a heart, such a mind, and such a heroic spirit. Therefore, when he stepped into the middle stage of the Qi refining stage early on, he had already seen the trajectory of the Tao of Heaven that other people had to cultivate to an unfathomable level before they could understand it. It was also destined that Zhang Xiaohua's path of cultivation in the future would be different from others, and his goal in cultivation would be superior to others. Besides, now that Zhang Xiaohua had the cause today, what would his effect be in the future? The cycle of the Tao of Heaven and the Tao of Karma. We can only wait and see. The moment Zhang Xiaohua closed the door, the image of the Tao of Heaven in his mind rumbled, and showed the outline of the Tao of Karma. However, the Tao of Karma was too profound after all, and it was not something that Zhang Xiaohua could comprehend at his current level. The outline stopped abruptly the moment it appeared, and it made Zhang Xiaohua feel as if it was a reflection of the moon in the water. It was somewhat real, but also somewhat ethereal. Then, Zhang Xiaohua withdrew from the epiphany and looked at the dark sky. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. The comprehension of the Tao of Heaven was only for a moment, and a lot of time had passed around him. Would he be able to comprehend the Tao of Heaven in his dozens of years of life? In Zhang Xiaohua's mind, although the outline of the Tao of Karma had appeared, it was not as clear as the Tao of Life and Death. However, Zhang Xiaohua did not have the slightest regret. He had just comprehended the Tao of Heaven in the wind and rain on Shixin Peak a few days ago, and he was already satisfied with the little progress he had today. It was impossible for him to be reborn in just a few days. Wonderful! Zhang Xiaohua closed the door of the small courtyard and clapped his hands in praise. He couldn't help but leap into the air and do a few somersaults. He thought to himself, there's really no way to say that his character is good. Although I was forced to endure the pain of extorting a bottle of the so-called whitening elixir, I was able to comprehend the way of karma. Although I can't see it clearly, it can be compared to life and death. How can it be simple? I've made a fortune. I've made a fortune. Just when Zhang Xiaohua was happy, suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Who is this? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. When he was about to go to the door, he heard a timid voice. Senior Brother Ren. Senior Brother Ren? Zhang Xiaohua recognized it carefully. Wasn't it the voice of junior sister Yi who was with Xiao Tiantian last time? Needless to say, Zhang Xiaohua involuntarily touched the jade bottle in his arms, and did not dare to make a sound. Sure enough, the voice called a few more times, but no one answered. It seemed that he was about to leave. At this moment another voice sounded. Junior sister, what are you doing here? Senior Brother Ding. Why are you here? Junior sister Yi was obviously shocked and asked in surprise. I went to look for you. I heard that you came out. I was afraid that you would be taken advantage of, so I hurried here. Senior Brother Ding said. Junior sister, you know that the little medicine boy of the pill opening hall has a bad reputation. 2 days ago, he even flirted with junior sister Xiao. Why are you so bold to look for him alone? What? Zhang Xiaohua in the courtyard almost fainted. What did I do? Flirting with Xiao Tiantian? And his reputation is bad? Zhang Xiaohua wanted to cry but had no tears. Unexpectedly, junior sister Yi burst into laughter and said, Senior Brother Ding, I guess you've heard those groundless rumors. Although this little pharmacist from the pill opening hall is a bit greedy for money, but if you say that he has a bad heart and flirts with girls, you've wronged him. Zhang Xiaohua was in tears. If it were not for the whitening elixir in his arms, he would almost rush out and call for a bosom friend. Who knows what kind of person he is? I only saw him once when he just came up the mountain. How can I know what kind of person he is? Since everyone said so, I can only believe it. It's not that serious. Senior apprentice sister Xiao secretly told me everything. It's just that senior apprentice brother Song was looking for trouble and was taught a lesson. He casually said a few words in anger. Senior apprentice sister Xiao even extorted a bottle of pill elixir from him. Hey, he's just a little medicine boy. Is his martial arts so good? Senior brother Song is no match for him? And face, is it so important? I see that the disciples of the Mingcue Hall are going crazy these days. Senior brother Zhang. Zhang is gone, so you want to take him? Senior Brother Ding. How can you know our thoughts? Junior sister Yi rebuked. Senior Brother Ding said, let's go. He's not here. It's useless to knock on the door. Besides, junior sister Xiao has already extorted a bottle of elixir from him. How can he not be careful? Alas, I just want to exchange a bottle with him. I don't have any other intentions. Junior sister Yi followed senior brother Ding out of the small courtyard of the pill-expanding hall. After they had walked for a while, a tall and skinny figure leaped out of the small courtyard. He didn't seem to have any movements, but like a gust of wind, he swept past the nearby mountain ridge and took a shortcut in front of the two of them. When senior brother Ding and junior sister Yi turned around a mountain rock and were about to move forward, a masked figure in a robe blocked their way. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.